and my microphone's off. So let's do that again. Hello and welcome to this live stream. Sorry for the delay and sorry for me just talking with nothing happening. I turned my mic off. So yes, there have been some technical issues. As always, we tested this last night and it all worked, and then we logged in just now and it doesn't work. So we very quickly tried to jerry-rig something, and hopefully that's going to be working. So I'm going to introduce now my co-host for tonight, Tom from AATV. Say hello, and hopefully can people let me know if you hear us? So yeah, hang on, I'll jump back to me. So yes, while we wait for your responses there, hopefully there should be thousands of them flooding in any second now. This stream is all about teching and upgrading and what we think is the right way to upgrade guns, specifically AEGs. And if you guys have any questions about upgrading, whether it be specific or in general, we'll do our best to answer that. But again, neither of us are professional teching experts. We both do this as a hobby. I think I do it a bit more than Tom does, but Tom also techs on his own guns as well. So I can hear you not, Anvil. Right. No. Right. Okay. I'm going to take my headphones off and do the god awful way, but at least you'll be able to hear him. Right. Okay. So this is going to be awful and not the best audio quality. Hopefully it should work. And oh my, you've just jumped around. Oh, there, you're back. Okay. So, Tom, do you want to try chatting away? Let's see if people can hear you.
Okay, guys. So we're going to go through Ben's desktop, which is probably going to sound absolutely hideous.
Yep.
Let us know how I sound, if you can deal with it and all that sort of stuff. That'll be awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. And while they're doing that, I am going to put this here and just give a quick test. I've got a quite crappy webcam set up, so if anyone wants any in-depth questions about anything, I should be able to give you a nice desktop-ish view. And for example, this is what I'll be drinking tonight. For Tom, this is Tribute Ale. So
cool. I have a can from Del Monte pineapple wheat beer from our local brewery. Just hand delivered today. They're doing a really great kind of delivery service at the moment to keep themselves busy, which works really well.
Oh, brilliant. Not getting any responses yet, so I'm hoping they're all stunned and amazed at our bodge. If not, you might need to participate via the comment section. Or I guess you could sit here and chat with me and I could chat back to them about what you're saying. I mean, we have 5 concurrent viewers, so at least one of them could say... Oh, yes!
Okay, so they can hear us.
They can hear you, right.
We need to be a bit careful about who's speaking, when and where. So maybe we raise a hand when we want to say something or something.
Yep.
But that's cool. Okay.
Brilliant, let's crack on. Right, so first things first, let's talk about what upgrades you should do when you get a gun and it's brand new and you get it out the box. Because I have two things I'd do if I got a new gun. What about you? You've got one thing. Okay, so do you want to go for your one and then see if they overlap?
I would clean the barrel.
You clean the barrel. Funny enough, that's my one. And my other one is I would take the bag of BBs that come with it, throw them in the bin, and then get some good quality BBs. So those are my 2 core upgrades for a new gun, any gun really you get.
Right, so that's the live stream over.
That's it done. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming to our TED Talk. I didn't even open my beer yet. I'll do that now. But yeah, I think
in
that.
all seriousness, I mean, the amount of posts I see on UCAC and other Facebook groups and everything else that basically just say, I've just bought this gun, I haven't even played with it yet. I've not even pulled the trigger. Not even pulled the trigger yet. What should I do with it? It's a bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm bad for it, right? Because you look at my channel, it's all about upgrading barrels and hops and motors and MOSFETs and all this sort of stuff. So I think part of the reason we wanted to do this stream was to try and put the right message across, which was just going to sound really boring, which is just leave the bloody thing alone.
Oh yeah, but to be fair, it's
for
a while, and yes, there are definitely reasons to start doing upgrades or doing repairs. A lot of the time, what I will do is not touch it until something breaks, because in that case, if it does break and it's a new gun, what do? You send it back to the store under warranty.
So let's dig into that a bit.
Yeah.
Warranty, right? So EU, technically, it's an electrical good. You should have 12 months. Actually, we're about to leave the EU.
Hooray!
But currently we're in transition, so everything should have a 12-month warranty. Now that's always fair use. So if you put a 14.8 volt lipo in it and smash the gearbox to pieces, the retailer you buy it from is probably not going to be best pleased.
No.
But
yeah,
it's a manufacturing fault or a construction fault, or the way the gun's been put together, or the way maybe they've downgraded the spring at the retailer and that's cocked up. It's, then take it back, which is something else we should probably talk about. Is where to get your guns from in the first place.
Yes, absolutely. And also I've talked about before on the channel, but the process of buying guns as well is actually something that people don't really think about. They just go online and order something they like the look of, and they get it and they're like, actually, wait, I don't like this, and then you're stuck with this gun effectively. One of the comments by Brian Airsoft is, I like to flat hop everything. And it's true, a lot of people do that, get their gun, take it apart and upgrade it straight away. But as soon as you do that, you void your warranty. So if it is a dud, then you've kind of squandered that ability to get it replaced straight away.
Yeah, I mean, most shops won't be too impressed if you take it back and say, why has it been opened then? You say, yeah, well, I took it apart and flat hopped it. Even if you haven't been in the gearbox straight away, they're going to be going, well, what else has this guy done?
Yeah. To be fair though, actually, to go to the point where you're going to flat hop it is probably where I take a gun down to clean the barrel, because the first time I clean a barrel, I will want to take it completely out and have just the barrel, so I can properly run through it. But I don't know.
So
does that count as voiding warranty?
I think there's a difference then between people who are comfortable taking a gun apart. And are happy to take that hit, and your average airsoft player who isn't comfortable taking their gun apart and isn't comfortable taking that warranty hit.
Yeah.
So we almost need to differentiate between the two sets of people to a certain extent.
Oh, absolutely. I think very much so. If you are a first-time buyer, or you haven't had much experience in airsoft and this is one of your first guns, don't take it down to that level. Just get your cleaning rod, put your bit of paper towel on the end or microfiber cloth. Get a bit of alcohol on it, not beer, cleaning alcohol, IPA stuff. Run it down there, give it a good clean, and don't push through the hot rubber, but push down to your feeler resistance and do it that way. But for someone,
it used to be when you bought a Marui, you got a cleaning rod, and on that cleaning rod was a mark.
Oh right.
That mark was the way it used to come. So you used to get the classic cleaning rod. You might have one lying around somewhere. And he's on the big one. So here we go. So the classic cleaning rod. Now, if you bought an old Marui gun, so not a new, as I'm talking about 10, 15 years ago, and you may still do, you get the cleaning rod, and on that cleaning rod would be a mark on that rod, which is a do not insert past this line, which means you wouldn't ever come into contact with the hot rubber. So you could clean externally, and you'd be confident about how far you could insert that rod down your barrel. Well, where's that gone? I've seen, there's a number of guns I bought recently with no cleaning rod in.
Well, TM can't do that anymore. Like, especially with the 416 and 417, seeing as they give you two barrels that you could possibly handle it. They have to put two marks on them. But I think that's gone away because airsoft has grown to the point where it's not economically viable. I'm saying from their point of view, they're thinking it's not economically viable to make individual cleaning rods for individual guns. but then again, there's only like a set number of barrel lengths out there, so you can just make.
Ben, you'll never guess who's in the comments, mate. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh Jesus!
It's Rammers himself, the purple helmet. He's come out of nowhere to join us.
I thought he was dead.
No, he's been doing like electrolysis on his rusty fucking caliper, hasn't he?
Do you think that would void your warranty if you electrolyzed your airsoft kit?
I think Mark Greenway in the comments also has made a thing. There's a lot of manuals talk about spraying silicone spray down the barrel, which is
and that's why I didn't say silicone spray. Don't use silicone spray.
I think the reality of using I think these days we don't tend to do that. The reality, I used to do it religiously because my manual for my Marui G36 said after game day, turn it upside down, fasten silicone spray through it, and pull it through with a cleaning rod.
Right.
But now we kind of say that's not good advice. But that doesn't really matter. After 200 BBs, it probably doesn't make a jot of difference anyway, and you've cleaned it all out.
Yeah, that's true. I think just.
I still wouldn't do it. It's one of those.
Yeah, I mean, I went and bought this for like £3, and I bought this about 3 years ago, and I mean that's how much I've used, and that's cleaning every barrel every game day.
It's probably worth you doing a little video then, Ben, on actually the first steps when you buy a gun. Just pretend you just bought a gun, and just do a video because we were talking earlier about topics to cover. Yeah, that's a great one to do. How to clean your barrel out. Fantastic.
Yeah, and I mean there are guides out there already. But they tend to go to the level that I tend to go to, which is strip the gun down and get just the barrel out, which you can do, but that's because I'm trying to squeeze precision out of my barrel as opposed to just make it playable and fairly usable.
Okay, so we've discussed what we can do as soon as we buy a gun, clean the barrel.
Yes.
Now, if you're confident and you're happy with losing your warranty, you can take the barrel out.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to retain your warranty, there are if you've got a cleaning rod, brilliant. Just measure it, be careful, and just clean the barrel. They are generally filthy. They've got lube, grease, dirt, horrendous stuff in there.
Yeah.
Most barrels, as from the factory, are dirty.
I guess actually,
so nice dirty pipe.
If I grab a gun, I can quickly show you my kind of way of gauging barrel length. For if people are wondering, so I'll switch back over. So I've got my partner's AFV here, because it's the shortest gun I've got. Effectively, what I'll do is I'll take my cleaning rod and lay it on top of the gun and look into the mag well. Pardon?
You can switch to an overhead camera.
Yeah, I'm on the overhead cam. Hopefully.
Okay,
yeah. So effectively,
yes. Sorry, I've got 3 windows open. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, no worries. You're used to running the stream, so. But yeah, right. So it should have just appeared. But yeah, I take my gun and I'll lay a barrel cleaner on top of it and try and line it up with the feed point, like a feed well, I don't know, feed pipe, the bottom of the hop up unit in my mag well, and then I'll slide it forward about 1 inch because that's the kind of loading distance, and then I'll mark at the end, which is now off cam, mark at the end, and then I'll know that is the length of the barrel, and that's the safe depth to go to. And sure, I might miss the very end of the barrel where the hot rubber is, but I think the BB's still kind of stabilising at that point, so it's not the worst thing. It's surely better than not cleaning your barrel at all.
To be super safe, probably wind the hop off.
Yeah, oh yeah, wind your hop off all the way first.
Cool, so that's the really dull upgrading bit covered.
Yes, that's what we recommend.
Let's touch on where we think you should buy a gun from in the first place, or a riff, or we're going to say all sorts of scary words. So for YouTube, again, Airsoft replicas.
All of this is Airsoft. So, in terms of buying guns, the number one thing I'd say is don't buy a gun unless you've handled it, or handled someone else's of it. Because you end up buying guns online without ever handling them, thinking they're going to be great, and then you get hold of them and you're like, oh, I don't like the feel of this. This is too heavy, or it's in the wrong position. Why is the mag behind the pistol grip? I didn't realise that sort of stuff. Um, so my number one rule for buying guns is go into a store or find someone at your local field that has one and get hands on with it. Now, most of us love showing off our kit, so if you see someone at a field with a gun that you like the look of, just go over and talk to them. Preferably not in the middle of a firefight, but in the safe zone, just be like, "Oh, mate, I really like the look of that. I'm thinking of buying one myself. Any chance I can have a little feel of it?" And most people be like, "Oh yeah, here's a mag. Go to the range. Go dump some rounds through it." And that's a good way to kind of figure out if you actually like it or not. Obviously, the other thing is you can ask online, but you get a lot of crap thrown at you.
You'll get every time that question comes up. So what I'm best going to, you'll generally get a load of people that own one or two airsoft guns telling you that and they want some validation for their purchase. So they'll tell you to buy the one that they bought.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Even if
I generally have no idea what they're talking about.
yeah, I'm kind of tempted to do a test and just set up a fake account and go on UCAT and pick a gun and make a post and then just see what the deluge of comments is. That'd be quite an interesting study. But yeah, you can ask online if you haven't found anyone. But what I would recommend is if it's a type of gun, say for instance an SA-80, go and look and see if there is a owners group or a group around it. So I know the Evos have got one. I know L119 builders have a group. There are a couple of L85 and SA-80 groups, because then it's people who actually have the platform and will be a bit more knowledgeable in the area. Whereas normally if you go on one of the main airsoft pages and say, "I'm thinking of buying an L85," they'll be like, "Oh, it jams all the time. Don't buy one." That sort of stuff. When in actual fact it's an airsoft gun. It's nothing like a real.
Doesn't actually go bang. The same goes for the Russian forums. So the Russian impression, the Russian loadout for groups on Facebook have had a lot of experience with various AKs and stuff. So I think what we're saying really is try and get hands on. Try and go to a store if you can.
Yeah.
Because if it goes wrong, it's much easier to take it back when you can actually just take it back.
You can walk back into the store and go. Yeah.
Rather than trying to. I know it can be quite tempting, and it's just ironic because I've just done it myself. It can be quite tempting to buy a gun from like Gunfire or something to save yourself 20, 30 quid. But if it goes wrong, yes, that's it, done, stuffed.
Yeah, there's only a couple of guns I own that I've bought on a whim and never handled before, and some of them were because I've been looking to build a specific kit. So I've never been hands on with a L1A1 before I bought it because they're rare as crap. But I knew I wanted an SLR, so I took the punt. And I also had 15.
There are no options.
Yeah.
Really. There was two. There is only one now. So
yeah, and there'll hopefully be two again soon, and maybe even three. But really, if it's your first gun, get hands on with it. And if you're buying it because you think it might look cool, get hands on with it. But if you're buying it for a specific loadout because you want it to be that look, then ergonomics and aesthetics aren't. Well, aesthetics are, ergonomics aren't really the reason you're buying.
I think I'd also say if you're buying something really niche and really oddball, it almost certainly won't work well. Yep. You really want that really weird thing from that film that you love, and you found an airsoft version, it's probably not going to be particularly great.
Right. I love this to bits, but I know someone previously did tech work on it before I bought it, and they replaced the nozzle, and it's the wrong length, because I've tried everything and I can't get the FPS above 280, and I have no idea what the right length of nozzle is for it, and there's no data anywhere.
Oh, it's fine by me, because it's a 9mm submachine gun, so it should have low power anyway.
Yeah. It's got low power, it still throws them out. But anyway, that's beside the point. So yeah, basically, our number one rule is try and get hands on, and where you can, if you're buying it new, buy it from a shop near you. And if they don't stock it, most people, if you go to them like, "I really want this gun," they will probably go out of their way to try and find it because they want to make that sale.
I'd quite like to get you £300.
Yeah, if you can source this gun. Yeah, absolutely. And normally, because especially if you're a new customer to the shop and you go, "Look, I want this oddball item," they'll probably try and bend over backwards to get it for you because they'll know you will then come back to them. So yeah, don't be afraid to ask retailers. "Hey, I've seen this. It's not on your website, but can you get it?" because a lot of the time retailers will only kind of cherry pick the stuff that they think will sell or that they personally quite like, but they have access to a whole load more that they just don't list. So
it's like New Pro, right?
Oh.
So if the store has New Pro, they also have access to 5 or 6 other major brands. They just may not have it in.
At the moment, I think it's ICS, G&G, WE, Bolt. I think they also E&L, yeah.
E&L,
Yeah.
LCT.
Although
A&K,
yeah.
So if they've got an account with Newpro, they'll have access to all of those. They just may never order any because it's just not really generally worth it for them.
Yeah. Well, I know.
So ASG have a number of licenses as well. And they bring all sorts of stuff in. So all these distributors. So if you see an Evo in the shop, there's probably a whole load of other stuff they can order the next time they put an order in as well. So it's always worth. I know you're laughing at the same stuff I'm laughing at.
Yeah, just reading the fight about buying guns blind.
Right. So let's try and so we've kind of preached a bit.
Okay. Yeah.
So should we try and move on to what we're really talking about?
Yeah. So
but this is really actually what I really wanted to talk about as well.
Which is what? Actually upgrading stuff.
Well, no, actually not upgrading stuff.
Actually not.
And also, so I think the next stage really is play with the thing.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So once you've bought it and you've cleaned the barrel, play with it.
Yeah.
For a lot of hop units don't really start working until there's been several thousand BBs through it.
Yeah.
Which for me might take me 6 months, and for some people might take them 10 minutes. But you need to get some BBs through the thing before it starts actually working properly.
Yes, absolutely. And as we said before, not crap quality BBs. If you want a good performing gun, you need to buy good performing ammo. It's the same with real steel firearms. You can buy crap ammo, and you will shoot crap. And if you buy good grade ammo, it will shoot better.
From my testing, Airsoft ammo is very equivalent, actually, to real ammo. So cheap clinking ammo has a group size about 3 times that of high quality ammo, which when you look at real 5.56 is about the same.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you also get and then heavy ammo will go further. It will hit harder. It will be more accurate at range, just like real ammo. I tend to think Airsoft is. We've had a chat about this on the podcast before. I think
the 10 times
like 10 times scale, and it sort of works.
It really does, actually. It really does. So I was just reading the thing about buying stuff blind. I think the king of buying stuff blind is Mark, with just, this was on Breaker's Yard. It doesn't say what's wrong with it. And now I've built a Sniper L86 Barrett 50 cal.
We'll go into that in a bit.
Yeah.
I think there's some really valid reasons for doing that.
Yeah, no, you can get some absolute steals.
So quality ammo. So
Yes.
I get provided free ammo by ASG. Let's be very honest about that. They've always been really helpful for the channel.
Mm-hmm.
But I've shot their 2.2 blasters, and I filmed it because I did an article for the magazine. I've never filmed it before I started the channel. And I shot their 0.2 blasters and then all the different weights up to 0.3, and then I shot their double blasters and all the different weights from 2 to 2.8.
Yeah.
And the difference in accuracy is noticeable, even at 10 meters.
What, between blasters and devil?
Yeah, and as the quality straightaway the group size moves, and then as it gets heavier, the group size gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller.
Yeah.
So I'll film it for the channel because it's really quite interesting.
Yeah, I know that.
It shows you that.
I'd be interested to see that.
So my recommendation to people would always be use the heaviest BB that your gun can efficiently lift.
Yeah.
So when it starts losing loads of energy, you start losing range, stop it.
Yeah.
But the best upgrade you can buy, for me, is ammo. And I'm not saying buy ASG. Buy whatever quality ammo that you have, but don't skip it.
So that being said,
test.
Yeah, absolutely. So I did a video. It was one of my earlier videos. Was actually just me testing what was the best weight to run on my DMR. And I thought, seeing as I had my LSW with me at the time, I'd take that along, and that was actually pretty good because I ran through a load of different weights and found that the LSW started losing power after 2.8s. So I now run that on 2.8s, and the DMR could happily lift 3.6s. And I honestly didn't think there'd be that much of a difference between 3.2s and 3.6s, but there was so much of a difference. that I now run 3.6s in that, and I think I might even try running 3.6s in my other rifles that aren't support weapon rifles, because I do play in semi-auto mainly, and it will just add that bit more accuracy if I can hop them.
It depends on your hop unit.
Yeah.
So to be honest, most of the stock hops I've tested that aren't a higher end gun can't. 2.8 is about the limit.
Yeah.
And they start. So if you do the numbers, fine. Obviously the FPS drops because there's a relationship between FPS and weight. That's just physics, right?
Yeah.
So obviously the FPS drops as you go up in weight. But if you do the numbers, you can get the kinetic energy out. It's not really complicated. Everyone's done it at GCSE or whatever, but you get a calculator, just pick up a calculator on your phone and plug all the numbers in, and you'll see when your joules start really dropping off.
So I'll see if I can find it, because when I did the test, I graphed it all, because I'm that sort of a nerd.
I've got a graph of my time to target graph as well.
Ah, brilliant.
I thought we were talking about upgrading it. Now we're talking about BEVs.
Yes.
Honestly, it's the single best upgrade in terms of getting more range out of your riff, getting more accuracy out of your riff, and it's comparatively it's a couple of quid more on a bottle. It's so cheap compared to buying barrels and hops and gears and all this stuff.
Yeah. So
just feed it with some decent stuff. Go for it.
This will appear to you in a minute, but I've got my test, and you can see the LSW and the SLR. But you can see on the graph that actually, they actually kind of held their percentage joule drop quite well. So I assume that 2.5s with my 100% joule, and then from that they only dropped down to about 75%. Obviously the SLR had a better kind of continuation of joule, so it kind of dropped to I think about 90-ish%, and then stayed at 90 across the weights, whereas the LSW dropped down a bit more, but that's due to barrel length and barrel volume and such. So realistically, they probably could lift it, although I swear it didn't do that before. Oh well, this was a long time ago. But yeah, realistically, the best things you can do is buy good quality ammo and find the heaviest weight that your gun can happily lift. Now, we know going heavier makes your gun more accurate inherently, and gives it slightly better effective range, not maximum range, effective range, which is a big difference between the two, which I guess we can talk about. So if you have maxed out your quality of ammo and you've maxed out the weight your hop can lift, and it's not performing as well as you want it to, the next thing you can do is look at improving your barrel and hop assembly. Not your FPS, because your FPS at the end of the day, I think, doesn't matter all that much to range and accuracy. Consistency of it does, but the level of it doesn't. Would you agree with that, Tom?
To an extent, I think there's obviously going to be a bonus. You know, there is a difference between 300 and 350, or between 0.8 and 1.14 joules, which is generally our sight limit.
Yeah.
It's about 10-15 meters, but you can do that with a decent hop.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and I'd also say, right up, if you're chasing 350 and 1.14 joules, it's a really dangerous place. Not dangerous, but difficult place to go. And unless your chrono is the same as the site chronos, and you're chronoing in the same conditions on the same day, with the same air pressure, with the it's very likely you'll go over. And we see it all the time at chrono stations. People slightly over.
Yeah, and that's that's one of the things I suggest is, if you're building a field legal gun in the UK, aim for 1 joule, because that difference between 1 joule and 1.14 joule, not that much. Yes, between
it's just not worth it.
Yeah, it really isn't. You'll get more improvement out of just doing a couple of tweaks to your hop than you will do out of chasing the FPS. I think in the scheme of building things, FPS is like the last thing to worry about, unless you're really low at like 0.6, 0.7, 0.6, 0.5 joules. But even then, you can still get guns that work quite well. So I've got a little AEP Glock that I'm running on 2.8 because it can lift 2.8, but it's throwing them out at like 40 FPS, something stupid, but they still go out there because the hop is good. So, seeing as we've chatted around the subject quite a lot, should we talk about what you can do to your barrel and hop unit?
Yeah, okay. So we bought a gun, beat the barrel, but we feeding it with quality ammunition,
Mm.
brilliant. Probably one of the next easiest things to do without having to crack a gearbox open, because as soon again warranty issues and there's a bigger level of experience needed before you start cracking gearboxes.
Yeah.
Is your hop and your hop unit. I tend to flat hop everything that I go anywhere near, and I'm very boring, and I use the same recipe that I've been using for the last 5 years now.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure what I do is and the recipe that I use for my flat hopping is not the flavour of the month on various forums who are using God knows what. This week, I do the same thing, and I'm not saying I got that from Amped Airsoft. When they did a video on flat hop, so I just bought the same stuff that they did. I'm not a great tech. It's not something I do for a living. I fiddle with my guns, and I've looked after a few teammates' guns. But that recipe works for me, and that's. So if anyone in the comments wants to comment about whether they know what a flat hop is or not, or they know they've never seen a flat hop and an R hop and a stock hop and an S hop and all that sort of stuff, would you like us to very briefly talk about it? Because we could spend an hour talking about different types of hop.
The one I'm confused about is the BR hop, which
never heard of it.
I've seen it once referenced, and it's Brain Exploder. Someone asked him what type of hop do you use, and he says I use a BR hop, which I can only assume stands for Brain Exploder hop.
That's probably just a brand of.
Yeah, but yeah, so flat hopping is kind of something I'd do as well. I think for most guns, if you're trying to lift a bit heavier weight, flat hop is the way to go. R hops and S hops, I wouldn't. I only really use. I've got an R hop in my DMR because it's a DMR, and I did it mainly because I wanted to see what the difference was, and then it took an age, so I did a video on actually doing the R hop, and the original edit of that was over an hour because it took that long. There were like 4 or 5 different attempts, and I had to rip the hop out, put a new one in, rip the hop out, put a new one in. I think flat hopping is the easiest way to upgrade your hop consistency, other than taking your hop rubber off and silicon greasing around it to give you slightly better air seal. I think that's one thing that hop units do lack generally, is when you get them they'll have crappy air seal, and the best way to test that is to get yourself a chronograph. I think if you're going to do any form of tacking work, the first thing you need to do is get yourself a chronograph. And they're not expensive. I think I picked this one up off AK2M4 for about 40 quid. So for the cost of a new barrel, you can get this, and this is going to last you a lot longer and is a lot more useful.
Take that chrono to your local site and check your chrono against their chrono, so you have a vague idea. Really, the only decent chronos are scans, but they're 250 quid.
Yeah, no.
So they're generally a lot of the ones you buy aren't too bad, but they're not calibrated. But at the very least, take your chrono along with you to the game day. When you chrono your gun on their chrono your gun on your chrono, see where the discrepancy is, and you literally have a vague idea of whereabouts you are.
Or if you forget to do that, just assume that this chrono is reading about 20 FPS over, and just aim for 20 FPS below anything. It's the safest way to do it.
Okay, so hops. Okay, so most of us should really hopefully all know what the standard hop is and how a hop works. It's just little rubber nub comes down, and it's BB is held against the little nub. This is going to be weird.
Yeah.
Held against the little nub, and as the air comes on, it flicks it, and you get back spin as it goes down the barrel. Okay?
Yeah.
Different hop. That little thing that comes down is generally attached to the little hop bucketing itself, and there's loads of different shapes. There's W's and nubs and N's and little feathers and all sorts of, and little C and all sorts of, and apparently, and every week there's a new one that's apparently better.
So the two.
Like whatever.
So what you remember there used to be the Maple Leaf Autobot and Decepticon rubbers, and they were called that because one of them looked a bit like the Decepticon logo, and the other one was different, and they were like diamond shaped or square shaped because one of them gave you better range and one of them gave you better accuracy, and all this crap. Most part, the whole idea behind the hop is to put backspin on the BB. Now, flat hopping means that you've got a longer surface to do it over, so theoretically you get a more consistent spin per BB. Whereas if if you think about that, you do have some wiggle room in your barrel because you're not the BB's what 5.95 and the tightest barrel you can get is 6.01, so there is 0.04 mil movement there. So if your BB just kind of hits to one side, it's going to give it a slightly different path to if it hits it straight on. Whereas with a flat hop, you're going to be applying a flat pressure the entire way round, as opposed to a nub or a concave or whatever.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter if the BB's slightly off; it still runs down that.
Yeah, it still runs down
the
the flat surface.
Effectively, if you look inside, again, which we talked about, if you look inside a normal hop bucking, there's a little bump just inside it. The flat hop, effectively, you either buy a bucking which doesn't have it on, so it's just a little tube, effectively, or you buy one like I do. I buy polymer purples and cut all the stuff off with the Dremel, turn it inside out and take it off with the Dremel, turn it back inside and use that. Rotate it 90 and put it on. And then you buy, instead of the little nub which depresses that bucking, you buy a special little, it's just a much bigger one, which is flat, hence flat hop. It's really not very complicated.
Yeah. The other thing you can do is on most hop up arms they have a kind of little semicircle where you put your hop up nub. I do have one somewhere. A hop up nub. You know what? It's a round bit of tube. And what some people do is cut that off and then use a bit of an eraser as the flat hop nub because it is a semi-squishy material that's less squishy than the rubber and applies a flat pressure. Or if you're a massive...
I sort of think all that stuff turns into a hobby all of its own.
Oh yeah, it really does. And that's half the fun for me is teching in.
It's a bit like people that buy 3D printers and then spend all the time building bits for their 3D printer.
Yeah, I'm not that kind of a nerd. I have a 3D printer, but I don't really build bits for it. I use it to build bits for this. So I'm trying to find it. I've got one somewhere. I used a flexible 3D printer material and 3D printed hop-up nubs myself. Like flat hop nubs. I've also 3D printed my own hop-up units. Actually, is there a nub in this one? Nope. So there's a whole world behind people trying to do upgrades and finding the actual best hop-up method. And then R hop effectively. So we'll know we've got the window at the top of the barrel. R hop effectively fills that entire window with a patch. So instead of just a little kind of even the flat hop, it still comes down flat. With an R hop, because the entire window's filled, it kind of comes down in a circle and kind of cradles the ball, Rammers. It cradles the ball. Yeah.
So you get really even pressure. But R hops are generally two problems with R hops are I see. One, you generally have to use a heavier ammo. So we've just been talking about that. Let's say you want to go to a CQB site, which has a limit of 0.25s. I've had R hops before, and the minimum weight I needed was a 2.8, and even then, it was probably overhopping.
Yeah.
And most R-hop manufacturers will tell you it really needs a 3 or a 3.2 or a 3.6.
Or if you're that kind of a nerd, some people will be like, actually, it can lift a 0.12 if you made it properly. But yeah, most of the R-hops people install.
And then the other thing I've come across is they're generally consumable.
Oh yeah. Well, I don't know, actually. A good R-hop should last because they are made from pretty durable material. But any hop-up rubber will wear out over time because you've got a harder plastic hitting against a softer rubber.
They just wear fast. For me, most of the stuff, and I could well be wrong, and again, I don't have a lot of experience, but to me, they just seem to be a consumable product. Yeah. So for me, I don't shoot very much, so that could be a long time. For other people, that could be quite a short time. I personally would put one in a DMR or a sniper, a flat hop. Sorry, an R-hop, because I'm not going to shoot very much.
Yeah,
and then everything else, I'm going to flat hop. You get 95% of the benefit for literally 5% of the effort.
Yeah. The other thing we can talk about is S-hops, which are supposedly the easier R-hop method, which I haven't tried yet. I do have the materials to have a go at trying, but I haven't tried yet. And that is effectively that. I've got a barrel here. You take your barrel. I will flip the table cam for this. You take your barrel, you get a bit of a tech's favourite bit of Teflon tape. You wrap it around a rod that is slightly smaller than the diameter of the barrel. Wedge it in there. Get S-hop. Get Sugru, and massage it into the hop-up window, which is there, and then smooth it on the outside and leave it to set. And then you take your stuffing point out, and then suddenly you have apparently a perfect R-hop patch, but made out of sucru, hence the S-hop. And now you shall be seeing Tom looking very disgusted at this method.
I'm not convinced that this sounds like a wise and sensible thing to do. As I say, I think a lot of people that do this sort of stuff, it's almost that's part of their enjoyment. That's part of their hobby is fiddling with their hops.
I will say,
doing new things.
I did have an S-hop done by a professional tech a while ago, purely because I was curious as to what performance difference it'd make, and he was doing it at 15 quid a pop, and I was like, sure, and he fixed some other issues for the same price in a gun, and it was really good, and it was in my old DMR, and it worked really, really bloody well. It did take a little while to settle in, but once it settled in, it was really good. And I believe that whoever has now bought that gun off me is still using that S-hop today and is loving life with it.
Yeah. I've got an R-hop coming in.
Right.
But ready set up.
Right. So you're getting
from an Italian company.
Right.
It's already going to come in done.
Right. Yeah. Well.
And to be honest, that's probably what I would do, because I'm a lazy sod ultimately. I cannot be asked with setting an R-hop up. They're sending me 3 barrels, which is nice. So another video I'm going to do, I'll really dive into it with this one. I'm going to use my GMPs, because I've got several spare GMP hop-ups lying around, or I've got several GMP guns, so I can use the same hop unit.
Yep.
I'm going to use a stock hop, a flat hop, and an R-hop, all running on the same barrel, so the same type of barrel. They're sending me 3 barrels, which is really nice, one of which is going to have an R-hop set up in it. So I'll be able to do it. I've done it before, but I did it ages ago, two years ago now, I think.
Yeah.
And I want to do that video better. Part of doing that video better is using the same barrel out of the same gun, and just keeping everything as consistent as possible. So that'd be really interesting.
I think that'd be quite an interesting one, because I think the big difference between an R-hop, a flat hop, and a stock hop is the ease to dial it in. Is one of the things. Like once you've got an R-hop installed, it will lift heavier BBs, and you have a bit of a bigger margin of error when you're setting it to get it into the kind of right ballpark. Whereas with a stock hop, if you turn it just a bit too far, suddenly you've gone from perfect hop to either over-hopping, or you're starting to lose a lot of FPS with it. But I guess one of the things we haven't addressed is when you use a flat hop and when you use an R-hop, you require less of it to stick into the path of the BB to apply the same amount of backspin. So you maintain it.
Why people think they're so good is actually, and again on that video, my old video that you'll see, I think it goes from something like 1.12 joules with an R-hop to 1 joule with a flat hop to 0.8 joules with the stock hop, and that's just the amount of energy it robs out the system to backspin efficiently. But I think what we're saying about is, I think for if your average punter, if they want to have a go, or they want to pay for it to be done, generally I would recommend that a flat hop is the sensible.
Yes.
It's just a sensible, reasonably low cost. Those little bits of plastic are phenomenally expensive.
Yeah.
I don't spend 14 quid on a nub. It's quite terrifying.
I know. And that's why I tend to try and make my own, because screw paying that much for what is really an overinflated cost. I do think AK2M4 has commissioned some company to make basically clones of some of the flat hops and the fancy concave nubs. And he's making them cheaper, so at least someone out there has gone, hang on, this is a bit taking the piss. Although then people will complain that he's just cloned a design and that you shouldn't give him the money because they've just ripped it off.
I use butt-like flat nubs.
Yeah.
Again, because that's what's in this Airsoft. If you want to go and look at flat hopping, the video I followed with great success, it was by Airsoft, and it was something like flat hop. Yeah. And it's a really nice video. They present it really well, and they show you every step of the process. So that would be mine.
And if you're
going to have a go yourself,
I will say,
I would recommend.
The 2 rubbers I recommend for flat hopping are the Promi Purple and the G&G Green. I've used the G&G Green to great success. But I don't know if their quality's starting to waver a bit at the moment. I haven't been able to get hold of any recently. So I would only recommend it if I've used it recently, and I have used. So I got G&G Green in all of the G&Gs behind me, and in the L1A1. So anyway, we've talked about hops, kind of done that to death. Hop chambers, don't replace.
I would say leave it.
Yep. unless it breaks,
Just leave it.
don't change it out. I'm trying to think if I've bought a new hop chamber for any of my guns. No. Apart from, I pulled this out of a donor gun because I tried to make a tracer unit mod. And it works, but the problem is this feed tube is about a mil too short to feed out of a L1A1. So it's a perfectly working hop, not an L1A1, a L85, perfectly working hop unit. Just a standard M4 hop unit. The cheapest one I could find was in a donor gun that I bought for £5. So yeah.
Purple helmet, so you can make your own flat hop knobs out of Shugu.
Oh, cool.
Shugu, so you mentioned it for Airsoft, but so you can make a simple mould and squish it in.
Yeah. That's the old school method of doing it. Yeah. 3D printing is the way forward. This is.
So I'm a lazy bugger and I buy all mine. But there you go. Yeah, Brian says from Pleb to Pro. Yeah, so Airsoft did a series from Pleb to Pro, which is actually worth watching. Actually, it's quite good. I found it quite. Actually, I haven't watched it in a while, but I remember when I was getting into teching, I found some of the stuff they did was really good. But just explained very well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. So,
right. Okay.
So don't get excited by buying Pro Wins and all this stuff and nonsense.
No.
Pro Wins are incredibly variable as well. Their QC is like all over the place. So I think some people get a really good one and go, oh, it's brilliant. And then some people don't. I mean, I tend to like the rotary style hops more than the traditional dialy ones.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's generally, unless you're chasing every single last bit of performance, I don't think it's worth it. And at 350 FPS, it's 1.12 joules. It's just not worth it. Unless it breaks.
Yeah, the only time I'd recommend upgrading a hop is if it's a unique gun and a unique hop design, and the one that the company came up with was crap, and someone's made an aftermarket one that's actually working.
Fair enough. Yeah.
ICSL 85. I hear there's a one coming up at some point if some YouTuber pulls his finger out. Yeah. So talked about that. I guess the next thing would be motors.
Motors. Okay. Because generally, there's stuff that companies skimp on, right? So while we're doing hops, should we talk about barrels, because that's quite a common thing. That's hugely dependent on how good your initial barrel is all in the first place.
So talking of barrels, I'll pull the AFE out again. There was a stock brass barrel in this, and it was a pretty good performer. And then we were doing a bulk order back when we were a society, when I was at a uni society, and my partner ordered a Mad Bull stainless steel barrel for it, quite a nice quality barrel, and saw no difference between the performance between the stock brass and the Mad Bull barrel. And sure, the FPS went up slightly because there was a tighter bore, but other than that, no performance difference. And that's because the stock barrel had a good bore quality, and that's really the only thing you want to look for in a barrel is the bore quality.
So what do you mean when you say that?
So the bore quality is how much the inner diameter of the barrel varies as you go down the length of the barrel. And really what you want is a barrel that has a consistent diameter the entire way down. And the way you can tell that is if you look down and you're not seeing lots of rings. So if you see lots of rings in your barrel, that normally means there's going to be slight step changes, or your barrel actually can kind of wobble as it goes along. So if I switch over to the table cam, I'll draw one out. So you can get barrels that kind of meander a bit like a river. Obviously not as extreme as I'm showing here, but some barrels do have that sort of quality. And that's when you want to start going, hang on a minute, maybe I should get a replacement barrel for this. The other thing you can do is polish or bore out the barrel. Someone's just said rifling in a barrel. So, no, our airsoft guns are a lot more like muskets in the fact that they're smooth bore barrels. Although, is musket a smooth bore, or is that just...
Yes.
Yeah. Unless you've got a Baker, right? No, because rifles came about when
there was the old Tanya Kobo one.
Yes, and hang on.
Which was phenomenal. You've got one, haven't you? I want to play with it.
I'm a jammy git, and I have one, and
They are apparently good at below 1 joule, and anything over 1 joule, they just stop working.
Yeah, because it's not the BB that gets caught by the rifling; it's the air around the BB count. I'll try and do this for the camera. You might be able to see the rifling. Oh, there you go. Just about. You can see the rifling in there, and on the live stream you'll be able to see it. Well, when the live stream catches up. Yeah.
So the BB, people seem to think there's kind of two schools of thought.
Mm-hmm.
That the BB either rides on the top of the barrel or it rides in an air cushion.
Yep.
Physics and maths say it rides in an air cushion, doesn't actually touch the barrel as it goes down.
Right, you should be seeing it in the live stream for you, Tom.
Yeah. I'm still seeing a hop unit. Must be lagging like that.
Maybe. But yeah, so so if you know your barrel terminology, there's things called lands and grooves, and in most rifles, in actual rifles, live firearms, the bullet diameter is designed to be wider than the land of the barrel, and so that it effectively grips the bullet and actually spins the bullet. This barrel, the land of the barrel, which is the inner diameter of it, is still bigger than the BB, and the idea is it spins the air around the BB. Now, if you go up above 1 joule, what happens is apparently the air gets accelerated through the barrel faster than the BB, and so it destabilizes the BB, and effectively it comes out and it's already destabilized.
I'd love to test it. I've never had one.
Yeah. Well.
But you can't. Yeah. So you don't. It doesn't. They don't spin the BB in the same way that you spin the bullet.
No.
What it does is it stabilizes. It makes a very stable cushion of air behind the BB, and the BB still has backspin on it.
Yeah.
As it goes down the barrel.
So
otherwise,
I think the theory is.
The BB, you get no range.
Yeah, I think the theory is when the air exits the barrel, it forms a vortex and effectively acts like an air barrel beyond the barrel of the gun.
Okay, so it's like a.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Apparently.
So yeah.
So yes.
Rifling is not a normal thing, and this was entirely designed for the Japanese market, where the limits were 1 joule.
Really, they're better at 0.8.
Yes.
Under 300 FPS.
And to find one of these now, they're hugely expensive unless you get a company who doesn't know the worth of it and puts it up for sale second hand for like 10 quid.
Jealous.
In the right length for your gun.
Love to play with one.
Well, I
wouldn't worry about a rifle barrel.
Yes.
Or a striped barrel. Or I think it's generally there is currently no evidence to show that they're actually any better.
Yes. Okay. I've just seen Bry Airsoft actually makes a really good point here. Changing the length of the barrel or the bore can be a good way to boost or reduce your FPS. So one of the things you should be doing is a lot of guns will come and the barrel length won't be matched properly to the cylinder. And by that it means either you've got under-voluming, which means that the cylinder volume, effectively the air in there is less than the volume of the barrel, or it's less than the correct ratio that you need for the weight of BB you use. So in fact, changing your weight of BB changes the ideal ratio between your cylinder and your barrel. So technically, as you go up in weight, if you're keeping the same spring in there, you should shorten your barrel to make up for that. So in fact, even though my SLR has like a 700mm long barrel externally, I only run a 455mm barrel in it because I've got full length cylinder and I'm using heavyweight BBs, and that is the kind of better mix for them. And lo and behold,
if you want to get into that, look at the sniper forums.
Exactly.
They have it down to the absolute T on a matching barrel length to cylinder volume.
And I mean,
once you use different BBs and all that sort of stuff.
There's people in there doing crazy stuff. Like I think there's someone at the moment trying to get a glass barrel cast or made just so they can put it in front of a high frame rate camera with smoke in the cylinder to try and see what the air does as the BB fires, and once and for all answer where the BB rides in the barrel. Which would be quite cool.
Really cool. We love that.
But yeah, so there's a whole.
Bry's point. So this is my Marui Mark 18 that we're all very familiar with if you watch my channel. It's doing really well at the moment. I'm quite happy with it. So the stock barrel, when I changed the spring, went up to about Eagle 6 M95 in it, and that went up to took it up to about 1.1 joules, so 340-ish. When I then the next stage is I flat hopped it and changed the barrel to a Promi 6603. So the original Maru one, actually the original Maru barrels are really nice. The 6008 brass ones are really nice. If you look at it, they're actually really well made. Nice polish on them. I wouldn't bother changing, quite honestly. It made a tiny difference, but not much in terms of accuracy. That took it up 15 FPS. So that took it over the normal UK sight limit, and I then had to go back in and put an M90 in to bring the power back down again.
Yep.
So you can. It's a very nice, non-invasive way of upping your FPS a bit. So if you've got a gun that's doing 300, 310, 320, by putting a tight bore in, it straight away can do. It doesn't always, depends on the cylinder volume, but it can get you up 10, 15 FPS without having to mess around with springs or any of that kind of stuff. In fact, with the Marui, and I didn't really make this point enough on my last video, you can change the spring guide in the barrel and get yourself 30 FPS without doing anything to the gearbox.
Yep, absolutely. Wait, spring guide and how can the spring guide makes a difference?
Because it's bearing spring guide, so it stacks the.
Okay, so it pre-compresses, right? Okay, that makes sense.
Standard one's really small. If you put a bearing spring guide in, it's about another 10 mil worth of spring compression. So that raises the FPS, and then you can change the barrel and get yourself another 10, 15. Right. And you don't have to do anything.
It's good to know. I mean, but with a TM, you don't have to do anything anyway. The stock, they're bloody great. I mean, my mate's 4 and 7 doing what, 0.8 joules stock is still throwing BBs out almost as far as my DMR is doing 4. It was doing 420 when we compared them.
This thing stock did 60 meters.
Yeah.
Now it does 75, and I'm confident hitting at 60, 65 with it all the time. But I think, yeah, as Bryce says, you can also change the length. So if you have something that's a bit hot, you can put a shorter barrel in. Again, you don't have to change the spring.
Not
and
always.
You can drop your FPS.
It can
Not
also
always,
increase.
But
yeah. The best way to tell which way to go is what kind of noise the gun makes when it fires with a BB in. If it makes a loud pop when it's firing, that means it's over volumed. So shortening it should decrease the FPS. If it's quite silent, then increasing it will decrease the FPS because it's already kind of used all of its power, and it will just be adding resistance because it's touching the barrel. So that's a low-key way of doing it. You can then pop out a calculator and try and figure it out. So Arrow Airsoft has just asked, what manufacturer would you recommend buying from? I'm assuming he's talking about, or they're talking about rifles and guns generally.
Or parts.
Or parts.
You just let us know you're talking about buying a gun or buying parts, Arrow, and we'll. I know it's going to be a bit of lag. So I think again you can change a barrel, potentially get yourself some more power or a bit more accuracy. With that, go from the Marui to the Prometheus barrel got me about half an inch, 0.25 an inch at 10 meters. So at 50 meters, 2.5 inches. Yeah. Not a lot.
Yeah.
It depends on the barrel you get. You get everything. If you buy some of the really really cheap stuff, comes with a bit of aluminium tubing that looks vaguely bent. But yes, you can get quite a big change going to a quality barrel.
Most brass barrels
wise,
a lot of people look down on brass barrels, but I think if you clean them and maybe give them a polish, they're actually pretty good.
Yeah, I mean barrels wise, potentially Arrow's talking about barrels. So my daughter's room, I'm actually in the sewing room, which is now my workshop as well. So all the stuff behind me is more my partner's sewing stuff.
Do you have an IR camera?
Expensive
it's looking quite red. You're looking quite red over there. I don't know if you've got a. Oh, actually, no, that one. I don't know. Also, your stream quality has really gone down. I don't know if it's my end or your end.
Probably someone on the internet.
Yeah.
At my house, I am all over the place. Is my audio still all right?
Your audio is fine. It's just your video quality's dropped a bit, but that's okay because you're only occupying some of the space. So Arrow hasn't got back yet. I'm waiting for that to catch up.
Maybe he's talking about barrels.
Yeah. What's the blue? What's the best way to tell if your bore quality is crap? I haven't actually thought about that.
It's quite difficult to know.
Yeah. How about polishing your barrel? So you can.
I've never done it.
I've never done it either, but you can't. People do talk about it. The other one they do is lap a barrel, but that's
really lapping, they're just polishing it.
well,
It's an
yeah.
engineering definition. But anyway.
So I thought polishing was filling in grooves and lapping was removing peaks, or is that? But yeah.
I have no idea what they're doing.
But they're like
Anyway,
no, they buy like
I think-
sprung-loaded 3D printed parts and then cover them in diamond cutting compound and then run those through barrel like 20,000 times.
I don't know anything about it, so
Yeah.
I'm not going to comment. I bought lap barrels and they've been very nice.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm not worrying about it too.
I think again that's when you get up to your like sniper levels of things that people do that and they'll get marginal improvements and it'll be like the shot to shot consistency will go in by a quarter of an inch, but for a sniper at 90 meters when they're really pushing out the range, it might be the difference between a hit and a miss. Really, you don't need to lap a barrel. Clean your barrel out well, so long as you're not seeing any large particles in there and your barrel consistency looks good. So you're not seeing any major changes in the kind of reflection of the barrel. Then I'd say that's good enough. And if you really think it's your barrel that's causing issue, sure, go buy a new one. I wouldn't say spend all that much money. Probably just buy something like a ZCI. And
We've got a great question from Alice Brooks. I suspect you may know who she is. Is the GGAFV superior in every way, but
I have to admit that AFE is one of the best guns I've ever seen come out of a box. I remember when she first got it. So this is Alice is the owner of this lovely little gun. When she first got it, we went to set up the hop, and there was a guy zeroing in his sniper, and he just couldn't hit this 50-meter target. And we put 10 rounds all through that. All 10 rounds hit the 50-meter, and he just threw his sniper down on the table, and just dropped off somewhere. But yeah, the AFE. I'd recommend the AFE for anyone who wants a nice, small, compact fighting gun that also works really well outdoors.
Okay, so barrels wise, I've always used Prometheus. That's because I'm old and they were dead good when I started off. Other good brands I've heard of, AEG, they're expensive. PDI are very expensive. Lambda are meant to be doing some quite good stuff.
I've got a Lambda. I've got a Lambda in my DMR. I love it, but I've not
heard anything bad about them.
So I think Lambda branched off from PDI or AEG. One of the two. But the thing is, I've only got a sample size of 1, maybe 2. I've got a 603 Smart version of theirs in one of my mate's guns. He's used it once and he said it was good. But they're also really expensive. They're like 50, 60 quid a barrel. I got them both on sales. So if you find one on sale and you're willing to take a punt, go for it. Alice says thanks.
I hesitate. I mean, if I'm going to buy anything now, people have been saying the quality of some of the Prometheus barrels has gone down. So I'm not sure. I don't know. But that's certainly what I've always used. That's certainly what I've always used, and I've always been very happy with them.
The general recommendation from most people on various forums in the UK I see is if you're not building a sniper or you're not worried about super accurate DMR, ZCI barrels are the best bang for buck. Because they're like 25, 30 quid, and apparently bore quality's on them pretty good. I should pick one up at some point.
Are they stainless?
I think they are stainless.
Okay.
So yeah.
So that's not necessarily not the most important thing in the world. But obviously, a brass barrel is going to be more prone to corrosion and picking up imperfections and getting scratched when you clean it and all sorts of stuff.
So that's why clean it carefully, slow and smooth. Slow is smooth and smooth is fast. Ari's got back to us. Gun brand. What gun brand would take/need upgrades? Which besides TM are spot on out the box?
Ooh. I would say TM aren't spot out of the box, but that's my opinion really. I think they are overpriced, and TM fanboys need to shut up because they are paying far too much money for a gun. And I am one. I've got £1,000 in that gun, but I wouldn't do it again. It's very nice, it's very lovely, but they're just not worth the money.
By the sounds of it,
they're expensive to repair as well.
By the sounds of it, the biggest group of guns that are probably all right out of the box to use from your stream last week is probably gas guns, because as Gaz was saying, he doesn't do any upgrades to them. He just cleans them and puts them out to play. Because realistically, you don't have to worry all that much about air seal because most of your power comes from compressed gas, not from trying to get a compression on air.
I think when you're getting into what Amber's going to do,
Yeah.
I think as Brian Airsoft says in the forum, in the chat, it's very dependent on what your needs are. I mean, generally, I can name, but if I name LCT, I can tell you that the motors and the hops are crap.
Yes.
Out of the box.
So
there's always stuff. There's always something, but they're very playable. Don't get me wrong.
Oh yeah, most guns will have a fault with them, but will still be playable enough. For starter guns, I tend to go G&G because that's what I've used. But as the problem with any brand is when you recommend it at the time, they may be good, but that might be because they're not getting bought that much, so they're not producing that much, so they can focus more on QC. Then as they get bigger, because more people are buying it, they then have to kind of to keep the prices where they are. They have to stretch something else, so they kind of drop the QC a bit, and then you start getting more defects, and like you kind of see it. Airsoft companies kind of come through in peaks and waves, and you get them being good at one point, and then crap at another point, and good at another point. So really, I think it's look around and see what is what seems to be the good gun at that time, and going for that. At the moment, mid-tier G&G, high-tier teams to be up there, as you're saying, it is quite expensive for what you actually get. And then they come with their bloody annoying proprietary connectors, and no one wants to run their stupid 50 quid a battery arrangement.
So then you need to change a LiPo, and then you need to change a LiPo. You're already paying straight out, even a stock tin.
Yeah.
You want to do a LiPo conversion on it to change it to a different connector. So you straight away, before you even you're getting stuff done to it. We could do a whole episode on what gun to buy. And again, I don't really have a sample size big enough. We talked about with Gaz.
Yeah.
Sample size of most of my guns are the sample size of one.
Yeah,
that's just I can't call it. I can't call it on that.
Yeah.
What I need to do is get a tech in. Which is something I'm looking at doing at the moment for a video live stream I'm doing. He's trying to get a tech in who's got experience of dealing with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of guns, so they know they can tell you what guns go wrong and where they go wrong and why they go wrong.
So I think the only thing
I just don't have experience.
The only thing I can comment on is L85s because I've got pretty much every brand of them. And I would say if you're going to buy an L85, if you want to go cheap, buy the Army armament. There are some things you can do to make it better. And if you want to spend your money and get one that works straight out of the box, get a G&G. But even then, there are sometimes QC controls, so check it and take it back to your retailer if there are any issues. Anyway,
we do
motors, yes.
Not something I know a vast amount about. I tend to stick the ASG series in mine. I generally actually tend to leave them. The ZCI kind of stroke rocket motors are pretty high top motors are pretty good. They're pretty inexpensive.
Yeah, ZCI, SHS, rocket. I think they all come out.
They're all pretty much the same thing.
Yeah.
They've been pretty good. I've used them, and they're absolutely fine.
Those are what I tend to go for.
It can be a bit savage. I've ripped two bevel gears to pieces in mine.
Oh, really? Wow.
Because most of the spur and the sector gear in an LCT are CNC steel, and the bevel is mint.
Yeah.
And it's ripped it to pieces a couple of times. So, and to be fair, if it's going to rip something apart, that's probably not a bad thing to get destroyed. That's a whole other discussion.
Yeah, if we're talking about fail-safes on a gearbox, I always go for the piston as the weakest point because it's the easiest to replace.
Yeah, that's why people tend to. So if you are going to, we're going for time most of the time. Yeah. If you are going to start upgrading pistons, having some plastic teeth is probably a good idea because you want something to break somewhere. Luke makes it no, I'm not going to have Luke on.
Nope.
He swears too much. Quite simply, and he'll just go off on an anecdote, and I'm not interested.
Yeah. But yeah, I think plastic. I had this debate the other day with someone who was saying, "Oh, if you want to go for an 11-1, you need to put a full metal rack in," and I'm like, I don't think you do. But his school of thought was if you put a metal rack in and shim it right and AOE it right, it shouldn't have any issues. My school of thought is if something does go wrong, which guns inevitably do go wrong, plastic piston brakes, oh no, that's £7 for a new one.
Generally, in any sort of mechanical design, electrical engineering, you want to have a weak point in the system somewhere
that
is going to go.
It's a fuse.
It's easily, in the same way you have an electrical fuse and a plug, you want a mechanical fuse in a gearbox or any drivetrain. You want something that's going to go before, in a car, you might want something on the drive shaft to go before your gearbox explodes.
Yeah.
If there's an obstruction. It's very simple. You might want the connections in your drive shaft goes rather than your gearbox exploding and leaping through your leaping through the floor. That would be bad. And same with the gearbox, you want something that's going to go.
Yeah. Bryce just said you only need your release tooth to be metal. Pretty much, I'd say that, or like the last three, just so if you've got pre-cocking on, it's holding on metal teeth, not on plastic teeth. But your pickup and your couple after your pickup should really be plastic.
The only metal tooth in a Murray piston, which is actually what I'm running in that one at the moment, is the release tooth, which is metal.
Yeah, and that makes sense because they're not designed for pre-cocking, because they're not a pre-cock gun. And even
it's going to blow at some point because I do run pre-cocking on it, but at the moment it's absolutely fine. Actually, I was talking to I've been talking to some Murray techs, not necessarily the famous ones, but the guys that work in shops and actually just smash through Murray upgrades all the time, and they will tell you actually just leave the bloody piston in.
Yeah. So the way I see it is anything inside a gearbox doesn't really need to be replaced unless it's broken.
Yeah.
That's it. So
no, I'm not into. So I'm not into high performance builds. I'm not into DSGs and some of the crazy stuff that other people.
Cheers, Aaron.
Other people get into. Thanks, Aaron. I tend to like my guns running at about the same rate of fire as the real one because I'm into immersion and realism and LARP and all that nonsense, right?
Yeah.
So I don't want a gun. I've got guns that do 25 BBs a second. They've all got Titans in, and I turn it down. So it's like this whole thing about. So it depends what you're trying to. So when things do break, okay. So say your gun strips a piston or breaks a gear, you've then got some extra choices.
Yeah.
About what you're trying to do and what you're trying to achieve with that gun.
Yeah.
I tend to build for trigger response, but not in a crazy way, right?
Yeah. So I try and make my guns have a pretty quick trigger response, so that they're like a real gun. Because a real gun, you pull the trigger and you've got, unless you're using really crappy old SMB ammo in a Lee Enfield, you pull your trigger and it's click bang, as opposed to click bang.
Yeah. So you're talking about lock time.
Yeah. So Bryce asked about pre-cocking. The whole point of pre-cocking is your piston is ready to go and is sitting in the prime position, and when you pull the trigger, all it does is knock at the last little bit to release it, and it goes forward straight away. And G&G tried to build that into the L85, and that was some of the issues it had to begin with, was that the pre-cocking mechanism caused it to jam up sometimes. Since they've kind of fixed that issue. But yeah, pre-cocking is it pulls the piston all the way back, so it's sitting in the ready position, and then when you pull the trigger, it releases, it goes forwards, and then cycles back and stops. Whereas a standard gun, your piston normally sits resting at the rest position against your cylinder head, and when you pull the trigger, it pulls it back and then releases it and then stops.
So if I remember the data correctly, then going back to the TM, standard as it is now, it's running on it's got a set of Lonix gears in, so it will do about 0.08 seconds between trigger pull and firing. I can get it down to about 0.035 using maximum pre-cock on this. And it's quite a massive difference, but it puts a big strain on the gearbox.
Yeah.
Puts a big strain on the motor, puts a big strain on the battery, because it's got a lot, instead of starting from a position of rest, it's having to restart when the gearbox is quite stressed.
Yes. So you really need to run a high torque if you're going to be running pre-cocking. In fact, my general advice is run a high torque motor as opposed to a high speed. I generally don't run high speed. Very few builds want to run
even a lot of the DSG guys don't, because actually it's because a lot of the build for semi, and actually it's stopping steady. It's not high speeds. You need to get up to speed and just keep running. Yeah.
So I think the only time I'd run a high speed if I was building a support weapon that I knew would basically be used in very long bursts of full auto. So something like if someone had a vehicle that they were going to put a 50 cal on, and you're building a gearbox for that high speed, maybe.
50 cal's about 500 rounds a minute.
Yeah, it's got a very slow rate.
So that's me being nerdy again.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Well,
And that's why I say I think. So I was talking to this guy and he's like, I really want to up the rate of fire in my gun. And I'm like, why? And he's like, oh, I want to run it kind of like a support weapon. And I'm like, okay, but you saying you want 30 rounds a second? You don't need 30 rounds a second. Most support guns run at kind of like what 15 to 20 max.
Depends.
Hmm.
So does the gun normally shoot twice? Yes, it does. So it fires and then it carries on cycling, pulls the piston back, and with the Titan, you can actually most specs, you can tell it how far you want to get back. Some of the older stuff like the Warfare, you have to get it almost. It doesn't actually know where the gear is. In a Titan, the reason Titan works quite well is because it's got the gear position sensor and it knows actually where the gear is and it can put it back to a predetermined position. But obviously, it's got the springs compressed. The gears are having. It depends where your anti-reversal latch is, but the anti-reversal latch is under a lot of pressure, so your gears are under pressure.
Yeah.
And then rather than starting from a weak spring, most springs get stronger. They're linear compression, so they get more compressed and more resistance as they get more compressed. But the first bit's quite weak, generally deliberately, so the motor has time to wind up.
Here we go.
The motor has to overcome the strongest bit right at the end. Go for it, Ben.
I've got two types. I've got the linear and non-linear springs. If I can get my mouse to actually click. Oh no, everything's gone to... Oh, there we go. Right. So this is a standard linear spring, and as you can see, the entire way along the spring it's got the same pitch. Whereas this is a non-linear spring. Oh, it's got hooked up in a wire on my table. This is a non-linear spring. And as you see, as it goes along, you get varying pitch. So you put it with the denser pitch towards the back of the gearbox and the open pitch towards the piston. And then it's supposedly easier to compress, so it takes less energy to compress, but delivers more of a punch when it decompresses or puts the piston forwards.
I think it's just going to make the motor's life a lot easier.
Absolutely.
Because as it starts running, it's got an easier job.
Yeah.
So when you're running pre-cock, the motor's doing the worst bit of the job from cold.
Do you have a battery to hand for your TM?
Do I have a
battery to hand?
No.
Ah, okay. No worries. I was just going to say, because this has got an atrocious cycle time, but you can hear the wind up and then the release and the stop on it. We could...
I don't have one near me.
No, that's fine.
But if you want to see, Brian, if you look at my final TM build video, and when I do the Titan install, I show the difference. I pull the trigger, and you can hear the difference between the shots pre-cock and not pre-cock. I don't really use it that much. I think I liked the idea of it, and then I just every time I play a game I just forget it anyway. Just don't worry about it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm rocking kind of standard torque gears in the L1A1 and a high torque motor, no pre-cocking on it, and it still cycles fast enough. It's really a case of, I think pre-cocking is kind of almost Captain Ahab style, chasing the whale. It's chasing that trying to get that trigger response down. And it's a lot of people then put Titans in and then be looking at their trigger response time on that and racing and trying to get it as low as possible. When in reality, it's not going to make all that much of a difference. It's kind of like those little bits. But really, I think going back to topic, if a motor goes in a gun, I would recommend buying a medium-priced high torque motor, so like a ZCI, an SHS, or a what was the other one, Rocket, because they're 25-30 quid, and they will actually help improve your trigger response time slightly over a stock motor, because high torques get all of their spin instantly.
The ASGs are really nice. If you pay a lot of money for them, though, they are really nice motors.
They're almost double the cost, though. So. And
also, I think if I had a DMR, I'd probably spring for an ASG. But in a gun like this, or one of my GMPs, I'd probably run a ZCI Rocket.
Yep.
Type high torque motor. You can get a decent rate of fire improvement. You can get a big trigger response improvement with a high torque motor. I mean, big. Like it makes So most stock motors are pretty terrible.
Yes.
It's just really it's one of the cheap things. Cheap barrels, cheap hot rubbers, cheap motors tends to be the things that they can economise on.
So by cheap they don't put strong magnets in, so they probably have iron or steel core, well probably iron core magnets in. And They don't go they go very middle of the road, so they only put a couple of windings on, so they don't go high speed, they don't go high torque. Whereas high torques will use neodymium magnets, which, well, for example, I've got a stock G&G motor here. Let's try and stick an Allen key to it. It kind of just about hangs off that. Just. Now if I think I've put a high torque in the pistol grip of this. Much. Just grips that. No end.
Well, KWA is like that. I've had KWA Ergi. It's got a Z-Shot high torque in it.
Yeah.
That's like that. My LCT AKS 74 has got an ASG boost in it. That just attracts every single metal thing in my gun bag every time I move the gun. You actually end up pulling stuff off it, and you wonder like what it's doing to my radios and stuff.
I wonder if you've ever been at a game where you're like running along and they just got thrown into a wall with some metal there.
But I think it's a really relatively inexpensive. What are we talking, 20, 30 quid?
So I think it's 20, 30 quid for the base ones. I think the ASGs are about 50. But it's one of the things that will last a while unless you're doing crazy things like active braking. Those can wear down your motors quite quickly.
It may also run better because a lot of sometimes motors when they're trying to pull a current from a battery, if they're not really strong enough or good enough, they can overheat and then everything starts getting hot and your wiring gets hot and your battery gets hot.
Yeah.
And that's very common. People fire out the semi and they get really hot grips at the battery. So and that getting a hot lipo is not really something you particularly want. No. So I think an inexpensive high torque motor is a really great cheap. And we've still not got into the gearbox really.
No.
Because we might change the barrel. We've probably changed the hot rubber.
Yeah.
We've changed the motor. But we're still not in the gearbox.
No.
After 90 minutes.
Seeing as you mentioned current, let's talk about MOSFETs. Most guns don't come with a MOSFET. Okay. If you want to improve trigger response and if you want to improve rate of fire, MOSFET. And it just is an added benefit of it will improve the lifetime of your gun because your current is no longer flowing through your trigger switch, it is flowing through the MOSFET. Now
I've only burnt out a couple of... I don't know. Sometimes I think, and I'm really guilty, I've got like 6 Titans.
Yeah.
I sometimes think it can be a bit of a kind of game chasing the dragon, a bit ephemeral. You don't really need it.
I don't use any internal MOSFETs. I only used one, and that was because I didn't think there would be a MOSFET small enough to fit in the stock of the SLR. Since that was a pile of crap and is burnt out. I'll say it now, don't buy an ASCU MOSFET. I took a punt on it thinking that it was just some people having a bad experience. Nope.
I think I agree with you. I think a simple inline MOSFET, if you got one to hand or a box or anything, I think like the Gate Nano or the Pico or something along those lines, really simple.
I use, for the most part, I will just drop a Gate ASR and they're these doohickeys. They don't do anything fancy. They are just there as an inline MOSFET to carry the current. Purely so it gives me peace of mind that if I do end up running a higher current battery in it, I'm not going to burn out my trigger contacts. Because
I know you've got a great video on MOSFETs.
Yep.
I've got a video on MOSFETs. People that don't really know what they are, just think of it as an electronic switch.
Yep.
So instead of all the current in the battery going through your trigger contacts, there's a little signal wire down. There's two, so you can hardwire them in, but again, if you want to get more into MOSFETs, you can watch this. We've both got videos.
Yep.
But effectively, it takes all of the power away from the trigger contacts, and it just sends a little tiny current down. And when it senses that circuit's closed, it dumps all the power down into the motor.
Yep.
So it just separates those two circuits.
Yeah. Does it mean that your gun's 11.1 ready though? No. No.
Well, there's no such thing as an 11.1 ready gun. It's all marketing nonsense. It just depends how well it's built.
I mean,
all they're saying is it's potentially built a bit better.
Yes.
Or they're prepared to warranty it. So something you need to bear in mind. Yeah, and of course, so you've touched on it. Sticking a bigger battery in, or quality battery, can make an enormous difference to how your gun performs.
Yes.
So you certainly put in the free one that came with it.
Yeah. Take that free one.
Or not.
Throw it away. If you get a gun.
Recycle it in a responsible manner then.
Recycle it in a responsible manner. Don't just dump it in the bin. But yes, don't. I would recommend nowadays. There's no real reason not to buy lipos or lions for airsoft.
Yeah.
I think if in doubt, get a 7.4 lipo, because they will do you proud. They will work fine. And of all my guns, not all of them have MOSFETs in. If they don't have MOSFET in, they run 7.4 lipos. If they do have MOSFET in, they'll probably run 7.4 lipos. Although that being said, some of my stuff does run 11.1s, but that's because they seem to work better on them.
Some guns just seem to need it. Some of the GGs just seem to need 11.1s in them to run efficiently. No.
Yeah, and some guns now do actually come with MOSFETs fitted. So G&G have their ECU range, and they state on them you need to run them on 11.1. Not because running them on a lower voltage battery will do them damage, which I was told by a major retailer once. That was an interesting one. Basically, one of our friends bought a gun, and it had an ECU in it, and he ran it on an 8.4 NIM, and then it stopped working after a game day, and the ECU had blown up. And the retailer was like, "Oh, well, you ran it on a lower voltage, so that caused it to blow up." And we're there like, there were three of us. There were three of us. Yeah, there were three of us standing there, and two of us had degrees had electronic or computer science degrees and do a lot of electronics. We're just like, do you want us to get a whiteboard out and talk you through this? And after about an hour or so, he was like, "All right, fine, we'll replace it." But yeah, so guns that come with ECUs use the battery voltage they recommend. Otherwise, I'd recommend going for a 7.4, and they will see you through. And then if a 7.4 isn't doing it, then 11.1. But
there's also a bit different. Something we may do actually, is do a whole battery one.
Yeah.
Because there's an awful lot of talk about discharge rates and capacities and voltages and all sorts of stuff, which is beyond the scope of this program.
There's also a whole lot of myth out there about having a bigger capacitance means you have a higher rate of fire, which was true with an older type of battery tech, but with modern tech, that's not true at all. Because basically, the old style of batteries, you needed a bigger capacitance to be able to deliver a bigger amount of current instantaneously. Lipos, as you can see, because they catch fire all the time if you use them wrong, are able to dump all of their power instantly if they need to. So it's a case of if your motor can draw that much current, it will draw that much current. It's not a case of the lipos limiting the amount of current a motor can draw.
So if the motor's a bit crap and it's struggling, it's gonna start turning. It's gonna get hot.
Yeah.
Okay. So you can pretty much see the motor's carb if it starts getting hot. Or there's something. If your motor's getting hot in your hand, in your grip, there's something wrong. Stop firing.
Yeah.
You might get a bit warm, but certainly hot is not good.
Yeah, hot, or if you smell burning, that's normally bad. That's normally your motor's about to die because it's gunked up, it's carbon burnt to crap. Which was you'll see in a video coming up. I've just replaced the motor after 4 years in the AFV, and that's with Alice hammering that away for 4 years every game day, and that's finally died. And it's like a bloody pepper grinder here. To get out and like turn the shaft, and just crap tons of black powder fell out of it, which is
black carbon fell out of it.
Yeah, which is not unexpected. Okay. So Anubis has moved to Lions for his Evo, but isn't that because ASG have designed it for Lions?
How does it go? It's designed for an 11.1 lipo.
Right.
But that's at 400 1.5 joules.
Right.
When they brought them into the UK, they also made them Northern Ireland compliant.
Oh, so 1 joule.
So 1 joule.
Right.
It will, on an 11.1, a 1 joule Evo. Sorry, even a bit lower than that. Almost not. Some are coming about 310. On an 11.1, a low-powered Evo or a Evo can pre-engage.
Yeah.
Obviously do a lot of damage. So what they've done, and then if you run it on they will run on a 7.4, but they're a bit sluggish.
Yeah.
So what they've done is they've recommended a battery which sits somewhere in between.
Yeah, which is understandable.
Which makes a lot of sense because they don't want people using a gun which is like it'll be perfectly reliable, but it's just not very exciting.
Yeah.
So they've recommended the battery which is the 9.1 line which works quite well. If you take them up to, I think as soon as it's around 335 or or 1.1 joules, you can run a M1 on them.
So what? As soon as you put an M100 on, or is it? Don't they have a special 105 for it that they recommend?
I think they have like there's a spring guide plus M95 combination. Or something.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
And that'll take you up to, which is very easy to do on eBay because you can just chuck them straight in. It's great. You take the stock off, and then you can take the back of the gearbox out and get the spring and spring guide out, put them in, and you're done.
Yeah, I really need to get hands on with an Evo at some point.
I wish more guns were like that. Okay, so we've done MOSFETs. I think.
Well,
I think we're both. I think we should we go into doing the inside gearbox stuff?
Well, we touched on it briefly, but we didn't talk too much about actual internal MOSFETs. I think they're kind of a gimmick, really. You don't really need them.
Okay, so I'll give you an application where they're really cool, and that's in TM recoils.
Right.
Because they're prone to locking up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And some other version 2 gearboxes are prone to locking up. Every gearbox can lock up, but TM recoils are quite prone, and so V2s, I think something to do with the geometry of the gears, are more prone to locking up as well.
Okay.
So if you have a gun which locks up a lot, generally you need to stop spamming the trigger as much. So you just make sure you let the gun cycle. If you pull the trigger, and I show it, another promo, I've got a video on inside the gearbox, and I show you the mechanism by which how this works. But if you come off the trigger too fast in semi, you can come off before the gearbox has cycled, which means generally it will overspin a little bit and carry on working in the fire, but it may not.
Yeah.
And then it locks up. With an internal, certainly Titan, well, they're all the same. They've all got gear position. Anything with a gear position sensor of some sort, whether that's mechanical or optical, it will carry on cycling the gearbox, and you'll just take that off. And that's really nice. Right, so then you can finger bang as much as you want.
The only time you need that is if you've got a gun. 100% that you need that is if you've got a gun that only shoots in semi-auto and has no full auto ability. Because with any other gun, if you get a lock up in semi, you can flick it to full auto and reset the gear.
Not with those. You sometimes have to get the grip off.
Oh really? For TM?
And get a tool up. Yeah.
Is that because of the weird?
It's because if you trap it with the recoil weights halfway back.
Oh, it can't spin it up to push the wheel.
You're not. It's not going to have the inertia to. Again, a good battery. No, you can defeat a lot of that with a good battery.
Yep.
But I never had a problem with that one with a good battery.
Yeah.
I was running 7.4 2600 VP, the VP Tech good batteries. So that, but if you're not, you can have problems. And then and I've had other V2 guns I've had to take the grips off, and it's just a pain.
I had to do that. I've had to do that before with DMR, not with an internal MOSFET.
Again, because it's got a lot of spring to overcome, and it's got itself in a tiz.
Yeah.
So generally, I agree, Ben. I think what I would say to people, they are cool. You can do really fun things with them. Generally, don't need one. You can get most of the perceived benefit with a little inline hardwired in, just as you've shown MOSFET.
Yeah.
What I would say is, if you do have one, or you want to have one installed, be aware that you should probably be competent working on the gun yourself.
Yes.
Or be prepared to send it back to your tech if something goes wrong.
Absolutely.
Because there is some tricky installation stuff. You can really cock up the installation yourself if you get the position. If you position it wrong, and if you set it up wrong, you can get yourself in trouble as well. So I really wouldn't recommend one unless you're quite happy, if you live near your tech, and you're quite happy driving over.
Yes.
Or you're happy and confident going inside yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I know Luke from Negative Airsoft does a lot of stuff on this, in a very ranty way, which I don't approve of personally. However, I think the core of his message is they're just too much trouble for most people.
Oh, absolutely. And you need to know how to properly shim for it as well, because if you shim, so when I talked about my shim video, I talked about shimming motor to piston, which for the large majority of guns is a decent way to shim, at least I found. If you are using one of the Titans or another sensor board like it, you should shim the other way around to make sure you're not going to smash your sensors off your board with your sensor kit.
You also need it. One of the most common mistakes with Titans, and particularly Asters, because they're single-sided, is you need to get the sector gear reasonably close to the sensors. So and if it's too far away, it doesn't
Doesn't pick it
The
up.
optical sensors don't read the gear teeth very well, so they're just problematic, right?
Mm.
It's just one of those things. Once they're running, I think I'm getting a low battery warning on the Marui low voltage. Apparently, I just saw a video that Dave Custom Airsoft put out, and he says he's had several customers with that problem, and one of the things he just turned the audible warning off.
Oh right.
Stop running. And
Right.
don't worry about it.
Okay, that's
Cool. That's my. Because I've been sneaking up on people, and you get beep beep beep.
Yeah.
And I don't really think they're volume producing them enough at the moment either. But that's a whole different story. I really like mine, but I'm quite happy going inside my guns.
I think it's a nice to have, and if you want to have it and you feel confident fitting it, go for it. But you really don't need one. You can just get away with no MOSFET or an inline MOSFET. Simple as.
I really like mine, but I wouldn't sell a child or do anything for one. It may be when your gun. I mean, it's like potentially if your gearbox does blow up into a million pieces, that may be the point to do it. But I wouldn't go cracking open a good gearbox in order to fit one. It's really not. No. And again, hardwired inline MOSFET, you could put in and not open a gearbox. So again, we've upgraded our gun without going into the gearbox. And letting all the fairies out.
Yeah, so we're now, what, an hour and a half into the stream, an hour and 40 into the stream, and we haven't talked inside the gearbox yet.
Well, maybe we should save that for another one or something. I don't know what you guys in the comments, because that's how. And actually, I can recommend some stuff that I do.
Yep.
But I don't know masses about the mini, the tiny little details that really go into. All I'm going to say is I buy Lonix and Promi parts and it all seems to work.
Well, I mean, I don't really. Most of the time.
I can talk shimming. My shimming's pretty good, but it's.
Most of the time, if I'm opening up a gearbox, it will be to give it a clean, or maybe to redo the shimming.
And I'm not chasing again, but then I'm not chasing really high performance.
No.
So. Certain bits of it really don't matter. I don't need the best gears, I don't need the best piston, I don't need the best piston head. These things are nice, they're nice to have, but I'm not worrying about it because my rate of fire I'm not running at 50 rounds a second.
No.
I don't need Siege Tech DSPs.
No. Although what I will talk about inside a gearbox is the compression parts, because for me to get your perceived accuracy up, it's all about getting your FPS consistency up. So if you can get, I aim for a deviation of plus or minus 5 FPS. So 10 FPS deviation, I think, is pretty much is not massive, but not
this
super tough.
This does plus or minus 1.
Plus or minus 1. Right. Okay.
Yeah. Stock piston, head, stock cylinder.
Let's see. SLR has a percentage variance at the moment of 1.12% on FPS, which works out at 2.23% in power because of your square raw.
Yeah.
But yeah, so mine variance of 3.4. Okay, so that's not quite as tight.
I think most that gun is ridiculously. It's always been very good.
Yeah.
It was doing that stock. I mean, I cleaned it and I cleaned the cylinder and looped it and checked the O-ring and did all that.
Yeah, so that's the thing. That's what I recommend doing. If you've done your hop-up mods and you're still getting a big FPS variance, it's time to crack open the gearbox, take your piston, your cylinder and your cylinder head and your nozzle out, take it all apart, clean out your cylinder, clean down your cylinder head, re-grease it with a bit of silicone grease, and put it back together. No Teflon tape. That's
Teflon tape things. Something's gone very wrong.
The only place I use Teflon tape in a gun is sometimes to wrap the hop-up rubber, just to try and get a bit more air seal. Oh, and along the barrel to try and stabilise it inside the outer barrel. That's it. Not inside compression parts. So it's all kind of almost externally on the barrel. And that actually...
I've never had a problem, but then I spent, again, my Promi purples sound like a boring Promi parrot, but I've never had a problem with using Promi purple with compression. No,
absolutely not. Most hop-ups are fine. It's only if I've run out of hop-up rubbers and trying to get something to work, last ditch resort will do that.
Yeah,
but
sure. Yeah.
But spacing a barrel, so running hop up Teflon tape round a barrel and kind of like a barbershop pole style, until you find that you've got a bit of resistance as you're putting it into your outer barrel. That's where you want it, because then there's no wobble in the. Because effectively, quite a lot of outer barrels have quite a big inner diameter, so your hop up barrel, your barrel is sitting in there.
Some of them are really bad.
Kind of wrong end, that end.
Some of them like waving a chipolata in the back of transit.
Yeah. In fact, when I did the M14, I didn't film it because I didn't figure out the issue until I was testing it. But I put all this new stuff in, and we took it to the field, and it was BB was coming out and going right, and we're trying to figure out what the hell it was, and it's because I put a shorter barrel in. It was floating inside the thing. It was hitting the kind of muzzle cap before it came out, so I ended up having to put about an inch of tape. I crap you not, an inch of tape around the outside of this barrel to put it in the outer barrel, and it was because it had a plastic cap on what would be the breech face of that barrel that made it look like it was actually quite tight in a barrel, but it wasn't. It was just take that off, and there was a massive void behind it.
I tend to use either a kind of electrical tape, make a spacer out of electrical tape at one end. If it's really bad, because you can just do one, you just wrap it one by one layers until you get it down. Or I've got if it's really bad, I've got some small O-rings.
Yeah, that O-rings are going to be good.
Just O-ring it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it does make a big difference. And I find it may only be like 0.1 of a degree, but actually that adds up quite quickly.
Oh, it really does. It really does.
Particularly like you're talking about, if you get strikes off the outer barrel or off the flash hider, or if you're running a suppressor or a tracer unit, it can make quite a big difference quite quickly.
Yeah, it really can. So yeah, doing that to your out barrel and then re-greasing all of your internal compression parts. That's it. And then if you find that you've got a piston and a cylinder, and you have greased up your cylinder head, and you can cover the end of that, and you've greased up your piston head and made sure that the O-ring is supple, and you're running it back and forth in the cylinder and you're not getting any compression, then maybe it's time to get a new piston head. If that's the part.
If your stock one works and you're getting good air seal, just leave it alone.
Yeah.
It's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
Again, I think I've changed one in a ring, but only because I had it. I had a shiny orange one that I decided to use because it was lying around and it fitted well.
Yeah.
But if you've got a good compression, you've got good compression.
Yeah.
It can be. But some guns you get them and they're terrible. And then what they've done is they've put a massively powerful spring in to get the power up. And then once you fix the compression, suddenly you're doing like 420, and you're like, what?
I know. Yeah, it's nuts.
And that's putting a load of work on the motor because it's got to pull this massively powerful over spring back, and that's quite common I think as well. You get bad air seal. Manufacturers will put like an M110 and M120 into a one dual gun.
Yeah.
And then the motor's got, and then you're not very good stock motor. It's got a really horrendous job to do, and you hit, it's like that. Your lock time goes through the roof. Right. And actually, that just.
I know, it's nuts. Right, I am going to be really unprofessional for a second. I'm going to run off for 30 seconds because I really need to loo. Tom, do you want to talk about something? Cover?
Yes.
I'm putting you on the spot here.
Talk about mini eggs. We've got some mini eggs.
Yes, talk about mini eggs.
I really like mini eggs. I don't know. Let's talk about Maruis for a minute until Ben gets back. Hopefully he's not taking his mic with him like those kind of comedy shows. You can hear him doing the wee. So I kind of touched on this already. Maruis are expensive, right? So this one was 550 quid stock. Stock it was pretty good. You could do 50, 60 meters, 55 meters range. It was accurate to within 10 meters accurate to within 1.5 inches, which is really good. A lot of stock guns, giving it 10 meters can't do 2 or 3, and I've had stuff which does 5 inches at 10 meters. So it's one of those things really. There's little things in the Maru that I really like. So generally the outer barrel to inner barrel interface is really good, like we just talked about, with having to shim it. I don't think I've even bothered with this. It's absolutely fine. The tolerances are quite tight, but that's part of what you're paying for with this is that although the internals aren't what we necessarily call amazing quality, they all work well with each other, and the whole system is very efficient. And so that's kind of how they work. As soon as you start changing things, you tend to need to start, and that's something we can maybe talk about now back. Is once you start changing one thing, it throws everything out of balance, and then you're in this kind of race to the bottom by changing everything as you go.
Yeah, it's a pain. It really is. And yeah. So what did I miss out on? You talked about mini eggs for a bit. I love mini eggs.
I was mainly talking about what you're paying for in a Marui, and they are expensive. But I was talking about the way everything interfaces well together. As we talked about, the inner barrel, outer barrel in this is pretty bang on. I haven't had to do anything. The gears work well together. It's all quite efficient. The system is designed to work in one way.
I think,
and that's when you came in. As soon as you start changing something, something else has to.
It's almost like a Mac if you think about it. Tokyo Marui are the Macs or the Apple of the airsoft market, because they are the original like AEG people. Everything about their guns they've designed from the ground up to work together, whereas other people are cloning designs and getting parts that are being produced by a OEM for quite a number of people and then trying to get them together, and it just, because they're not controlling every step of the process as much, it can introduce those issues. And then as soon as you, like you say, start putting your own parts in, then that's another bit that's out of kilter. And it's like you see it with, so even if you just put like, you go, I want to run my gun at like 500 FPS. No idea why you would, but you put a massive spring in, what happens? You blow the front off your gearbox, because your gearbox wasn't designed to do 500 FPS. It was designed originally to do 1 joule. Like V2s were designed to handle 1 joule, because that's what they were designed for by TM.
If you look at like a GMP gearbox case, one of the old ones, we kind of talked about. So the die-cast zinc alloy, all zinc alloys are not the same. And die casting machines are not the same. Tolerances and pressures with the old GMP gearboxes. I've not seen a new one, hence I'm not going to talk about it. We're brilliant. They're all shiny. They're smooth. You can see the grain structure's really tight. They're reinforced. They're heavy. They're really heavy.
Yeah.
So maybe what did I have recently? I was looking at a Spectre Arms.
Yeah.
Orion gearbox, and it was a third, half the weight, just the shells.
Yeah.
So the GMP one was so much more metal and work, and the fit and finish was better.
Yeah.
Now the GMP gearbox, if you were to buy one, would be the same price as the Spectre Arms gun.
Yeah.
So it's perfectly reasonable that the Spectre Arms gun isn't built to the same spec. That's just standard. That's just the way it's going to work. You pay your money. So I paid 160 quid for a completely built new GMP gearbox. I can buy a Spectre Arms entire rifle.
Yeah.
For that amount of money.
Yeah.
As soon as you start, so I bought. Go back to Marui. I bought all the bits that everyone tells you should buy, and I got them on the table. And compared to the Marui cylinder, although it was brass, okay, it's not shiny stainless steel. It was better made than the Prometheus cylinder that I was going to put in.
Yeah.
Fine, the Prometheus one had all this shiny ribbing on it and stuff, but actually, you look at the Marui. The Marui one was tapered. It was like a squeeze bore, and it had it was almost crowned, so it had a tapered entry as well as the whole thing being tapered. And it was just really nice bit of brass, and you were like, why am I putting this quite expensive, nice stainless steel thing?
Oh, because it's brass, it's instantly inferior, purely because everyone on the forum said so.
It was just super nice.
Yeah, it's a case. I think for the most part, unless
bits are designed to work together. So generally, if you're going to start upgrading the bits in your gearbox, I would suggest that you try and buy bits from the same manufacturer.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think in general, unless you're trying to do a very specific build, so you're going for a really high rate of fire for some stupid reason, or you're going for, a really high trigger rate for reasons, you don't need to be changing out your powertrain stuff all that much. I think your gears can stay in there absolutely fine. Most stock gears are absolutely fine. In fact, I think pretty much all my guns run stock gears at the moment. And in terms of bearings and bushings, we haven't even touched on that yet. I don't think in the UK, there is no reason to change your bushings unless they are crappy plastic ones and changing them out. There's no need to change them really, unless they break. And bushings don't really break. bearings.
I sometimes wonder what the obsession with bearings is.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see the benefits of them. Like, in fact, I bought bearings to put in the L85 purely to see what the difference would be. Do you want to know what the difference was?
Probably got worse.
I would like to know because I can't see one really.
I think that the size of the bearings in Airsoft use, for reliability, I'd rather run bushings. Certainly on the sector gear.
Yeah.
Because it's got quite a lot of load on it.
Yeah.
Because it's getting pushed, so you want it. And I think you could probably get. I've never seen a really nice. Some of the Prometheus ones are quite nice, but I've never seen a really nice bearing in Airsoft in terms of like engineering grade, like by FAG or NSN or SKS or SKF or anything. So there's not, I think there's most of them are really actually most of the bearings are really nasty, and I would rather run a good bushing.
Yeah.
But again, I'm not running a DSG. So
yeah, I think
you
that's
you have that difference between us and some other players.
Yeah.
I'm building for reliability and for single time shots, and I'm not building for high speed and all that sort of stuff.
I think very much. So, if you are trying to build, okay, let's narrow it down, and we kind of covered pretty much most things in the gearbox, other than spring guide. You can change out if they're crap. If they're plastic, I tend to switch them out to a metal one.
Have you ever seen a broken plastic one though?
That's a good point. I have seen ones that have broken the teeth out of the gearbox,
okay.
as in the locking teeth.
Yeah.
But the only times I'll change my spring guides really if they're metal is if the piston head has a bearing on it, but the spring guide doesn't. I'll change it to a bearing one, and all that does is it means is as the spring's compressing and decompressing, it sometimes gets a torque on it and wants to twist. And what it can do is if you've got an easy twist on one side and not easy twist on the other, it will start to jump twist and you'll get stuttering and all sorts, and it can damage one side. So if you're going to if one side has a bearing on, you should have a bearing on the other side really. I change out a spring if I need to change the power level. The other time I'll change out a spring is if it is really twangy. Because I don't. For me personally, when I fire a gun, I want it to sound like fa-dump and not go fa-dump, ding 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 ding. Yeah, but that's that.
You can move a lot of that just by greasing them a little bit.
Exactly, you can grease them a bit. And then because I'm a snob and I'm trying to go for efficiency builds, I change. If I've got one that's just a linear spring, I'll change it out for a non-linear spring. Which, I mean, springs are springs. You buy them. They're like some people charge 25 quid for a spring, and
don't know.
I can kind of see it. Like
there's quite a lot of science that goes into springs and taking sets and transition yield strengths and all sorts of fancy words we could throw around.
Yeah.
I think there probably is quite a lot of difference between. I have had broken springs and I've seen quite a lot of broken springs. Whether they've properly heat treated it after they've built it and all sorts of stuff. So potentially, but again, it's one of those. You don't have to spend £1 million on a spring. Just get a. If you need to change your spring, you may as well get something reasonably nice.
Yeah.
You don't have to go mental and buy a £70 Prometheus non-linear.
I tend to use SHS or rockets, but mainly I buy them through AK2M4, and every batch he gets, he'll pull a couple out and test them and tell you what the average.
Yeah, he's pretty cool actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's another point I wanted to bring up. Is that generally springs are sold in M and a number. That number is allegedly the meters per second that a 0.2 gram BB will do at the end. But there's so much variable.
Yeah, I always wonder what they use as the test platform, and I'm assuming it's probably going to be like an M4. They're going to take an M4A1 and go, this is our.
But what gearbox, what compression, what?
Yeah, exactly. It's
what hop setting were they using?
Yeah.
So be prepared. Says this is why, and then there's the whole thing about cutting springs. I've never cut a spring. So I'm not. People do it. I would recommend that you don't. But I can see why people have to.
Yeah.
But I would recommend that you don't cut a spring.
And if you do,
just deal with the fact that I think a lot of that comes from that chasing that magic 350, isn't it?
Do I still have it? I've got a spring that's like this long that I pulled out of someone's gun. So they bought a second hand, asked me to do some work on it. And someone had just cut it down so much, it's unbelievable. Oh, here it is. Thanks for this. Compare it.
Sound like a short stroker or something?
No, it was just. It's a really, really hard. Like, I can barely compress this bugger.
Yeah, it's like some M140.
Yeah.
I put it in AEG.
Compared, so I think this is a stock TM recoil spring.
Right. It has to be boigy soft. Yeah, it's one of those things, isn't it? It's like, I don't know. It's not something I've done, so I don't know. I don't know enough about it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be comfortable doing it.
Yeah. So Bryce brought up a good point about he had to change out his bushings because he couldn't get his shimming to work with stock stuff, and sometimes gearboxes are made so badly that is the case. Yeah, and you showed me that video a couple of weeks ago now of the Laylax kit to centre bearings. That's quite a cool idea, but again, that's really chasing the dragon at that point.
I'm going to show you something. I'll put it on the screen. Overlays, new generally. Prometheus just bought a new gearbox layout.
Oh, I saw, yeah, with all the kind of like etchings to say this gear spins this way.
Put it on screen at the moment. If you full screen
Yep.
me.
Oh, full screen you.
So it's this is Prometheus is 2-part. I mean, a lot of it's quite superfluous. It does have lots of little load. It says, you know, cylinder goes here. Well, thanks for that.
Yeah. Gear spares this way. Gear spins that way.
And then they tell you what. Then they tell you what bolts they're using. I'd rather they put torque settings on. Quite honestly.
Oh yeah, that would have been nice.
You know, if anyone works on bikes or high end road bikes and mountain bikes, you tend to need to know what torque settings you have to use to avoid stripping threads. It would be really nice, right, if airsoft manufacturers could get their shit together to put torque settings in manuals and all that sort of stuff, but they just don't. Cool. Let's get rid of. But that's a 2-piece. So the compression system is separate to the gears. So you can lift off. You can deal with the air compression system separate to the gears, just like the old 2-piece Pro Winds and all that sort of stuff.
Or ICS have it.
Yeah. This thing looks. This thing's got. It's already got the radius thing done and all sorts of cool.
Yeah. No, that looks like quite a nice gearbox. How much?
It's black and red, so clearly it's like super cool.
Yeah.
But I think one of the things I was just thinking about then is a lot of the stuff people put in their guns are built for much higher power.
Oh yeah, a lot of people follow, especially in the UK. A lot of people go online and look up builds that will have been made by Americans or made by people out in the Far East where there's just no FPS limits.
Yeah.
So America, it's generally what 400 to 420 is a standard gun, and then 500 is like DMR territory, and then 550 is sniper territory. Like we're quite civilized about our limits here.
Don't. I think a lot of people's guns are massively overspec'd. Now, don't get me wrong. If you want to chuck a load of money, and there are lots of people out there that will very happily take a lot of money off you to build stuff. Feel free.
Absolutely.
I wouldn't do it, but absolutely, if you've got the spec cash and you want to spend £900 getting your Marui gearbox upgraded, go for it.
To be fair though, if you build a gun that can withstand like a 500 FPS build and you're running a 1 joule build in it, you know that most of those parts are not going to break.
It's going to run forever. Should run forever. You need to have a word with the tech that you spent £900 getting the gearbox done on. Personally, I think really in the UK we don't need it, and if you're not chasing mad rate of fires, a nice moderate, as you say, SHS, CCI, rocket style parts, if you're going to replace stuff because it's broken, makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And you don't need, and it's not going to cost you a lot of money. I think one thing I'm going to have to go soon, but one thing I'd like to touch on before I go, Ben, is how you get into teching in the first place, and are there any sensible ways of doing it. Personally, I don't think you should start teching on your £500 Marui the day before you need to play with it.
This is one of the big words of advice I give to people when they ask about teching is make sure you have a gun which is your primary gun that you run to play with. And then if you want to get into teching, buy a second gun that you don't mind too much if it doesn't work for 6 months. And learn on that, and just start with the basics and work your way up through it. I mean, that's what I do with my stuff. If I want to learn a new technique, I'll try it on a gun that well, I mean, I have an amount of guns behind me, so I'm not worried if I go to a game day and it doesn't work because I have a spare or three, and start on that. And then really, the best thing to do is go online and go look at not one but several videos covering the same topic. Because if you look at one, they might just do it completely wrong way. Like,
Yeah.
well, with shimming, there are 100 ways to shim easily. Ask a different person, you'll get a different idea, and go look through them and see which one you think is going to be easiest for you to do.
Oh, you can try them. You can try
Yeah.
shimming the 4 different methods you've seen.
Oh yeah.
And see what results you get.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. I think so. You can get a secondary. I mean, again, we bring up spec Matt. I've got a core. I've got one of their core ARs, M4A1 ish.
Yeah.
Looking gun. I picked up from Patrol Base for 89 quid, and I'm going to do a almost Pledge Pro hero 0 to hero build with that. Pretty much doing all the steps we've just talked about, and just showing you what you can get and how much money you don't need to spend.
Oh,
absolutely. See if I can
absolutely.
get it anywhere near my. If I can get it anywhere near my Marui for probably end up being a fifth of the price. Fantastic,
So
that's the sort of thing I would. So you've bought a secondary in case your primary goes down anyway, and then that doesn't matter because then you can work on it because it's 90 quid. Who cares? It depends how much what your budget is, but it's certainly not 500 or 300 or 200.
Yeah.
And the other thing you can do potentially is, as you mentioned it earlier, is buy a boneyard gun or a breaker's yard gun from one of the bigger retailers and
pick
try and
something
make
up
it work
second
again.
hand.
Sometimes it's just because a pin's fallen out.
Yeah. So.
Or a handguard's been wobbly.
So if Mark's still here, I'm sure he'll start listing off every boneyard gun he's ever bought ever and the problems with them. I picked up this MP5 for 30 quid. Admittedly, I think the guy was selling it because it was broken, but he told me it worked fine and it was 30 quid. And the issue with that was when it was built, they put the trigger spring and the tappet plate spring the wrong way round. So I took it apart, switched those back over, and now it works. Admittedly, it's got a really low rate of fire, like really sluggish. But I think what I'm going to do with this is try and spend the least amount of money on it, get it to a decent working state, and then maybe if I hit a big milestone, give it away. Because I've got enough. But yeah, that's the thing. So look in boneyards, look for second hand. I know you can't do it at the moment, but boot sales, if there are boot sales going on, that's a great time because people will be clearing out their crap and people will be sent by their other half with a load of stuff saying you're not coming back with this. So you can get
Midlands Airsoft fairs in November. That's going to be busy, I suspect.
Yeah.
Lots of people.
I think that's.
But yeah, it's like, how did I learn? I learned on just literally some broken guns, and lots. And when I learned, YouTube wasn't a thing.
So when I learned YouTube, YouTube was. It was back in 2015, but I did the cardinal sin and I did it on my first gun. Literally, I got my gun, brand new from the store. Went home. The first thing I did was, does this take apart like a real L85? I just stripped the fuck. Don't do that.
We've all done it.
We've all done it. And we all say don't do it.
Well, yeah, just listen to the idiots. We all had to go to a mate with a plastic bag. I've had loads of plastic bag guns come in from mates and teammates and people.
Yeah.
Can you make it work again?
Yeah. So most
every single spring, you took every single tiny spring out and dumped them in this plastic bag. Brilliant, thank you very much.
Here are the internals of my FOW. I took it apart to get one part out to fix the SLR, and I've yet to order a replacement. But yeah.
My partner will tell you there's several of those lying around the house. I've still not put my LCT recoil back together. That's been down for about 9 months.
Jesus.
Well, I'm kind of debating whether I'm actually going to do it or I'm going to put the original gearbox back in again. I think I'm going to put the original gearbox back in again.
Wonder if you could put it into an E&L.
Oh, I can send it to you. You can find out. People keep asking me. I wouldn't do it. It'll destroy it.
Yeah, but also there'd be no battery space in my gun for it. Because of
fixed stock.
Folding stock on that. Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm kind of like in 2 lines. I'm probably just going to turn it back into a completely normal ATM before it destroys itself because I don't want it to. It's a very nice
Yeah, Bryce just said the same thing.
Yeah.
First gun, never got back together.
My mate Marcus watched Black Hawk Down, decided he wanted one of the guns from Black Hawk Down, so one of the M16 A1 or A2 carbines. Bought this is back in plastic Marui times. He had a Marui M733, wanted the metal kit. Bought the Hurricane metal kit.
Okay.
Gun never ever. I think he's probably still got it 15 years later in a plastic bag somewhere.
But wait, hang on.
Quite happy.
But hang on, surely that's take the hop and barrel out, put it in the new one, take the gearbox, move it across.
No, it's like GMPs, it's the GMP kits. So it was a completely plastic gun. So it was basically imagine a plastic Marui.
Yeah.
And then you got, basically you took the gearbox, the charging handle, all the kind of little flappy working parts.
Yeah.
You took all of those out and you dropped them into a new body.
Right.
Which hadn't been prepped properly, it hadn't been filed, the holes hadn't been drilled straight, it hadn't been
right,
all
okay.
that kind of stuff. So these GMP kits, so this M653, these receivers were built as upgrade receivers for plastic Maruis.
Right.
So they don't come with all the bits. Hence why I've had to buy extra. So you don't get trigger guards, you don't get motors, you don't get pistol grips, you don't get fire selectors, you don't get charging handles.
Right.
So. All releases you get, so it's
And I'm going to put you full screen to show off that lovely piece.
It was actually the first gun I've ever built completely from scratch. So this is every single nut, bolt, spring, piece, receiver. I ended up, I had to chase threads and clean up holes and do all sorts of stuff in order to build this. I love it. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's short strokes, tightened. Absolutely, tight bore. Absolutely, this is the gun I'm going to do the R-Hop versus Flat Hop versus Stock Hop 2020 edition on. But it's this is my it's a great gun. It's got but yeah, it's like so that's what you had to do back in the day. So that's kind of shit I learned on people buying body kits and then trying to go, can you put my gun in this body kit? And you're like, oh my god.
Well, we're spoiled for choice nowadays. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so getting on to if you want to start teching, the next things is tools for teching. The first thing we've already covered and is 100% critical, I'd say, is get yourself a chronograph.
If you're going to tech, you need a chrono.
You need a chrono, or you need access to one, whether that be the site lets you go up on an evening and use those.
But then just buy one.
Just buy one. They're not a big expense.
Just put it on there. If you play Airsoft, just get a chrono. For God's sake.
Yeah.
So save yourself no end of bother.
Yeah.
So you might buy a gun and it comes in at 420 because they've got to downgrade it, and you've then got certainly in the UK, you've got an illegal, potentially Section 5 firearm in your house.
Yep.
You kind of need to know about that and not go driving around up to a site with it in your boot.
Yes. The ones in particular that I know do that is the E&L, because they even come with a certificate telling you how powerful they are. Mine came at 450. I was like, quick,
change it. Quick.
Yeah. So literally, I looked at the certificate and went, no, that can't be right. And I took the gearbox out because I could, and then took the spring guide out. Luckily, it's a quick change spring, and it just donk, massive amount of power on that. But yeah, so yeah, that's well, in general, if you're an airsofter and you have 40 quid spare, get a chrono. Simple as, I'd say. The next thing I'd recommend is a toolkit like this. I think they're about 15 to 20 quid I paid for this on Amazon. If it's still available, I'll put a link in the video for when this is not live stream. But I think it's actually designed as like a computer building kit, really. But you've got everything from sockets, which I've actually had use for in Airsoft, through crossheads, flatheads, posi drive Phillips, all that stuff, Allen keys, and Torx and Star heads, which for some builds they do use Torx and Star, which some people get stumped by because Allen keys don't work in Torx and Star. Don't try and round them in.
It's quite hard to round a Torx head.
Yeah.
Generally, most screws, bolts, fasteners in Airsoft are crap.
Yep.
Made of really poor, really soft. So certainly like the Phillips or crosshead, make sure you use the right bit. Test several bits to make sure you get really good engagement. Because if it slips a little bit, and then you're screwed. You just have to start drilling things out.
Yeah, and I know I've done it in videos before. I wouldn't recommend using a power tool to remove or do up screws. I learned the hard way recently and stopped. So that's why I don't use it.
I can understand why some people do. If that's what they're spending your whole life twisting things, is probably not the best thing. I personally wouldn't do it.
Yeah. Well.
But I don't spend my life working on guns. So
yes.
I'm not that fussed.
So
I think decent set of tools. You don't have to get mad.
No.
I think
the other thing I'd recommend.
A wide variety was useful because again, one manufacturer might be using this type of head, or they might change mid-batch, and then you're sort of like, well, why are two of those Allen, one of those cross, and one of those is a star?
Yep.
That's a bit dodgy, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so generally the fasteners are terrible. So before you start talking down on things, be really careful. And I would love manufacturers to actually put torque settings in things, but
yes.
No, I don't see it happening.
Nope, I don't. Probably because they don't know the torque settings.
Which worries me. It worries me in the first place.
Yeah.
My giant bicycle's got 2 Newton meters written next to all the little screws on the stem cover.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think. Oh, I wonder if anyone who does validation has actually ever looked at Airsoft seriously and gone, "Holy shit, what are they doing?"
I've done a fit, but only as a product designer, and I go, "Holy shit, what the fuck are they doing most of the time?" Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Alice, she was on the stream earlier, chatting in the comments. She's a validation engineer. I don't think she's stopped to think about it. I might bring it up with her and see what she thinks. But yeah, okay. So we've gone over kind of all the different parts of an internal. I guess the other thing you talk about, which is a whole other ballpark, is external upgrades. What would you do? I'd say you don't need to do anything externally, really. So long as your gun has sights, you're probably all right. And even if they don't have sights, you don't.
Some sights are monumentally awful.
Oh yeah.
Sights-wise, I think we could probably do what accessories you put in your gun is another massive topic. We could probably do camera or off live stream or as another live stream. I think, I've got opinions on it.
Yeah.
I'm going the other way these days. Not having any.
Yeah, I've always liked running an optic of some sort, variety, and mainly it's because I like to run guns that have always had optics on them. But then again, the SLR I've put an optic on. But yeah, anyway, that's a whole different thing. I think I guess the final thing we can do to close it out. Is the Asetec AC 5000 Chrono worth it, or spend a bit more? I would say the Asetec AC 5000 Chrono is definitely worth it. It's what I use.
How much are they?
45 quid. Let's have a quick look.
40, 50 quid.
Yeah, nothing. They're not breaking
they're
the
not
bank.
massively expensive. They're not really cheap. They seem absolutely fine for a home tech.
Yeah.
Exor Tech and Asetec. One of them, the engineers left and formed another. Half the engineers left and formed another company.
So Asetec is the new one that came out of Exor Tech.
Yeah. So I think they know what they're doing. They're not just a bunch of idiots. So I wouldn't have a problem with it. I think, as I say, as long as you validate it against what you're trying to replicate, validate that chrono against your sights chrono. Well, sight chronos are terrible. So absolutely awful. So, as I say, if you talk to Justin from the jail and various other people I respect in the airsoft site owning industry, the only chrono they'll trust is the big £200, £250 scans.
Are they the radar ones?
They're the really big ones.
Oh yeah, because at the jail they've got them mounted on into like aircon tube that goes down into a big bucket. Yeah. I think that's so cool. That's such a smart idea.
Yeah. Rather than some martial at a funny angle and all sorts of things.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, and that's a whole different ballpark.
Whatever you buy, validate it against the chronos that you're going to be using.
Yes.
Or that you're going to be chronoed with. And
yes.
You know where you are. Whether it's 5 off or 10 off or whatever.
Yeah. Okay.
Or it's on. No.
Okay. I'm just thinking to round out this thing. If should we talk about if we were going to do a build, just to kind of like summarise, what would we do? First off, look at the consistency of the barrel and probably flat hop it.
I would clean it.
Yep.
Clean the barrel. I would then play with it for a couple of games.
Yep.
I would get several thousand BBs through it before I've even done anything, and see where I am. It may be, depending on the gun, it's just fine.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And then if you find you're lacking in range, bear in mind stock. From everything I've done, a reasonably sensible stock UK spec AEG will do 50 to 55 metres maximum, and will hit a torso-sized target reliably at about 35 to 40 metres.
Yeah.
If your gun doesn't do that, take it back to the retailer and get another one. Right? It's not working properly. You can so if it's doing that, and if you play indoors at a CQB site,
that's more than enough.
That's more than enough. You don't worry about it. Yeah. You don't need to do it. If you play a lot of woodland, you may want a bit more. Then I would look at flat hopping and potentially changing the barrel.
Yeah. And then on top of that, after doing that, if I find that the gearbox sounds particularly grindy or graunchy, it will be a case of let's go see what god awful grease application and shimming is going on inside, and then normally like my if I buy a new gun or one of my mates buys a new gun and I do a general service on it, it will be open it up, clean it out, give everything inside a good clean, and then re-grease everything, and then if the gears are particularly bad and there's a lot of play in them, it'll be a reshim, or if they're too tight, it'll be a reshim. But some of the times it's a case of it's still fine, it's more than good enough for playing with, then it won't be.
I'd potentially put a wire MOSFET in.
Potentially wire MOSFET in.
Hard wire MOSFET in, needs a bit of soldering. If you're not that confident soldering, don't do it on your primary gun.
Nope.
Get someone else to do it, or practice on something else first. Because again, there's loads of guides out there.
Yeah.
And then potentially change the motor if the motor's a bit rubbish. But
and I'd change to a high torque because
if it breaks, then if the gear starts shearing or you blow a piston or something, then you can start looking at changing stuff.
Yeah.
But until then, I would leave the gear clean. If you're confident, clean and shim the gearbox out, get it all working really nicely, and then leave it until something goes pop.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's
very unexciting for everyone.
Yeah, I know. The conclusion of this how to upgrade your gun is don't touch it, you monk.
Pretty much.
Just that's
not good done. Don't.
And then if you really want to, go watch some awesome techs online. I don't know why you're watching my channel because I'm not one of them.
And if you want to go upgrading a gun, don't do it on your primary the day before a game day.
Again, I do that all the time because I'm an idiot, and I end up kicking myself for it every bloody time. And that's why I always.
Then you fire a spring halfway across the kitchen, you can't find it.
Yeah.
And you have to, and then, like I did on my Marui, I lost the recoil spring, not the recoil spring, the bolt.
I lost the tappet plate spring out of the my L85 for a year and a half. And it's not a standard tappet plate spring because it's a compression spring. And I found it a year and a half later when I was moving, and it had sprung. I had it on my desk and it sprung up and landed on a bookshelf, which was the IKEA like W-shaped ones.
Yeah.
And it rolled down and underneath the book.
My bolt stop spring was underneath the fridge.
Oh really?
Yeah.
The one I lost is the completely non-functional for the gun, but annoyed me no end was the bolt cover spring out of one of my fowls. Pinged off in my room, and I'd never found it. Even when I moved out and moved all the furniture around, I never found that spring. And it's like this long a spring, it just disappeared. But yeah.
I think also I want to reiterate the point you made earlier about there are loads of videos out there from some really good techs. And watch, as you said, watch several.
Yeah.
Almost come to your own conclusions.
Because
even some of the really popular ones are not very good.
Yeah.
So just watch 5, 6, 7. Doesn't take long.
And some people like to troll on their videos and will be like, "Oh yeah, it's a great thing," and they're actually doing it just to try and wind other people up.
Some very prominent YouTubers have been known to do things wrong to wind up their audience.
Yes.
So that's maybe not great.
Yes.
If they haven't then put a big thing on it.
Yeah.
later on. So yeah, potentially read the comments as well.
Yes.
If they're not massive, and to see if the tech has something to say, or I missed this step out, or I did this, or because I've seen that before, really good guide, but actually they lost a bit of filming, or the camera wasn't off, and they say actually I need so
Yeah.
it's worth having a quick scan of the comments and just see if there's anything from the kind of the channel creator themselves that.
Yeah. So I've done that. Like when I did the shimming one, I actually recorded a bit about like Titans and stuff and about how you shim the other way around, but the video was so long I cut it because I didn't think it was important, and then you mentioned it again in the comments, so I pinned your comment and put a comment on it saying, if you're doing it, do it this way. So always, make sure you thoroughly research the topic before doing it. Don't just try and rush it. And yeah, just try and get as many different views on it as possible, because there are a lot of teching videos out there, and not all of them will be good. Even if they pretend they are.
Yeah, it's super fun sometimes, and it's also incredibly frustrating. My partner will tell you that I swear like anything and shout at things, and threaten to go and smash things on the rocks in the garden because I'm so fed up with it. And then she has to calm me down. So give yourself plenty of time. Again, part of the reason I'm in the workshop now is I had to do everything on the kitchen table, which means you can't leave a project. I had to finish everything within a certain window, and then if I hadn't finished it, bag everything up, put it away again.
Yeah.
So you kind of want give yourself time, give yourself clear open space. Try not to have really bouncy floor surface when you start dropping things and everything rolls all over the place. Ooh. So it's just having a nice, clean, sensible working environment.
Oh, that's an interesting one.
With lots of light is really useful. Yeah. And other thing is you can these days with smartphones and everything else, you can take loads of photos and film yourself taking things apart. Then you know, even if there isn't a guide, you know exactly how to put it back together again because you've taken those photos.
So that's part of the reason I started recording my stuff. Was I was like, if I do this, then I know what I've done. And it was the first time I was really worried about taking a gun apart was when I took apart my mate's brand new recoil that he'd just killed. Because I know recoils are not the easiest guns to work on, but I had the video there and I knew how to put it back together. And I was making sure I documented each bolt I took out and put it in a place.
I have loads. I've got a load of IKEA Ziploc bags. Everything comes out and goes into Ziploc bags and is marked.
Yeah. Magnetic part trays.
Magnetic dish.
Yep. Parts trays. The other good thing is I use the lid of my toolbox as well. Is a good place to hold it. Just anything that you can hold parts in instead of leaving them rolling around on the table is always a good bit of advice. I think we've really covered everything now. So I guess if there are people still watching, if you've got any questions, more than happy to answer those now. Again, Tom, thank you so much for giving up your Friday night of sitting around inside to come and sit around inside with me. Yeah, I'm kind of going to miss quarantine when we eventually get out because
I'm quite enjoying it, but I'm very lucky and privileged. In my environment, in my house, in my garden, and the dogs, and
that's the
only one of those things. Actually, I've been very, very. Other than going to the pub with my mates, I've not really been affected. But I also understand that I'm very lucky in that.
Yeah.
There's lots of people really struggling at the moment. And,
absolutely.
And I'm not, which is I sometimes feel a bit guilty about, but that's life, isn't it? Really.
Yeah. Well, I have a garden of all of 5 meters, so I've not shot an airsoft gun in months now. So I'm starting.
I can only do 10 meters in the garden, but actually you can do quite a lot with 10 meters.
Yeah.
You can set your windage with all the guns. You can do BB comparative tests. You can do accuracy tests on guns.
I'm waiting for Ramsey to pop up again for the I can do a lot with 10 meters comment.
So cool. It's
excellent.
I'm gonna do some gas gun stuff.
I'm missing my gas gun.
Just saying thank you.
Yeah.
So we're kind of. I don't know if we haven't shared any massive pearls of
wisdom
of knowledge other than be sensible and be methodical, and you don't need to go rushing into things really. It depends what you're looking for.
Oh yeah.
I mean, if you want to learn how to do all the really shiny stuff, guys, there's plenty of stuff out there, you know.
Yeah.
So.
Just to plug, I've got plenty of videos up of me doing various bits of teching, and I try and explain what I'm doing on mine. I know you've done some stuff. Your In the Gearbox guide was quite cool. I like that.
very long. It's like half an hour long, but it goes through everything.
Yeah, but
It's called
that's what some people
As
need.
a primer, might be really useful. It's about the only video I've actually seen that shows how a cut-off lever works.
Really? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I've never seen another one that actually shows how a cut-off lever works. I may be wrong in that, but I certainly haven't seen one.
Yeah, I've never explicitly talked about how they work. I might have talked about why they're not working in a build, but yeah.
Yeah, so that video's got a very detailed explanation of how cut-off lever interacts with the trolley and everything else.
I'm just trying to think of other good tech channels to watch.
I used to use a lot of the old Airsoft stuff. I don't know if that's still up. I quite like that. The presenter they used was just very good at explaining things in a very meaningful way.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of other people I watch for tech stuff.
I have done, when I was doing the Marui, I did Kingdom of Airsoft, Eagle 6, and Dave's Customs did some.
Yes, yeah.
Some of them quite old, but if you watch all three of them, you'll get a fairly sensible idea of what you need to do. Most version 2s are pretty easy to work on, really. But
yeah, I'd say also, I don't really want to give him a shout out. Purple Helmet has done some good tech videos and
with some great stuff. Really,
great stuff,
and he explains exactly what he's doing.
Yeah,
really well. And you know, a lot of people will just tell you to do something, but they won't tell you why.
Yeah.
And I think a good recommendation for people to watch is people that explain why they're doing something.
Absolutely.
Because that implies they actually know what they're talking about and they can explain it in a meaningful way, rather than just saying, "Do this." Put your gear in.
Yeah. And the great thing about Purple Helmet is he uploads regularly.
Fuck, I've still got more subscribers.
No, you crossed him. You crossed him today.
You know?
Yeah. No. No. You're. I think.
Sit on my face, rammers.
Now let me double check because you were level pegging earlier, so I'm assuming you've now overtaken. Let's have a look. Purple Helmet is on 2.73k and.
My happening still there. I'm gonna be gutted.
2.73k. Oh, you're level pegging. Oh dear.
It's funny. Ramos soldering video. I think he's such very good soldering videos. It explains why. That's the point. It explains why he's doing stuff.
Yes.
So yes, if you're looking for a video that explains why they're doing it, not just how to do it.
Yes.
Because that really works in my brain. Cool. Okay, I'm gonna have to go, Ben.
That's okay, Tom. Thank you very much for coming on. I'm hoping everyone else who's watched this has found this helpful, and yeah, we should do this again at some point about something else maybe. Yeah. Maybe hopefully get the stream working properly next time. Actually, yeah, I'm hoping it's come out alright in terms of audio quality and it's not been too bad for you guys. So I don't know how to end this. If you haven't already, go over and check out Tom's channel, Anvil Airsoft TV. It is a great channel. Yeah, I'm not just saying that because he's on. I genuinely do think that, and he can probably show you the first message I ever sent where I say that. Yeah. And if you haven't subscribed to Tom, and if you are watching here and you haven't subscribed, I would appreciate a subscription as well. So thank you all very much. And from both of us, we'll see you again soon.